it's a remake of a remake.
So remake.
So, classic Banks and Mecha style, we're going to go through the units, and we're going to review them 1 to 5 stars, because you guys seem to really like that in Fire Emblem 7. So, yeah, starting with Marth. He's the main character right here, and he's alright. Marth, you kind of forced to deploy him at every single chapter. He has decent stats, however, he is footlocked, and unlike the other units in this game, he cannot reclass, so he's stuck as a lord. Still, he's not the worst lord in the series, in my opinion. He's got his rapier, which is effective against knights and horses, and he's an alright unit. I usually give him the boots, because every single map in this game is a throne seize. He has really high growth rates on average, as you might expect. He turns out pretty alright, but he can't promote though. So to make up for that, he can level to 30 instead of 20. So he never gets like promotional bonuses or a class change, sadly. So he's kind of locked with swords the entire way, which kind of sucks a bit. But still, I rate Marth a 3 out of 5 stars. He's a decent lord, you have to field him. And we're already off to a great start. Okay, Mecha, you give your thoughts on Marth.
Yeah, so we got this sword-locked guy right here. Always has weapon triangle disadvantage against like every lance enemy in this game, which is 80% of them. And then he can't promote, and he can't get a mount, and he's force deployed. Well, I guess that's okay. And he's always got to go to these villages and these seize things, so he's kind of limited on where you want him to go, unless you want to take like 30 turns. So I guess it doesn't matter, because it's Mangs we're talking about.
Hey.
But I don't know, to me it sounds like a guy that doesn't promote, doesn't get any other weapons, doesn't get a mount, and always faces weapon triangle. That sounds really bad to me. Then you went like 3 stars, and like what? I'd say Marth is more like a 2-star unit, if not, I wouldn't say it's a 1-star unit. Like he has good growth, but his bases are actually really bad. He gets 2-shot by everything, and he always gets countered. That's really, really annoying. He never doubles in hard 5 either.
Lovely.
So that's a problem. Yeah, I mean, if you forge his rapier, he can actually do decent damage against all the knights and armors, but it's like the least effective weapon in the game to forge, if you catch my drift, and it's pretty expensive too.
All right.
So I don't really like Marth a whole lot.
What do you rate him?
I think I said 2 stars.
2 stars, sounds nice. Let us continue with the next unit on our roster. It's everyone's favorite little blue Pegasus knight. It is the Caeda. And I'm sorry, I don't think I can do this. She's always been Caeda for me. I'm not sure if I can let it go. It's like Doga and Draug. I'm gonna call him Doga, I'm sorry. Anyway, Caeda right here. She's great. She's absolutely fantastic. Easily one of my favorite units in this game. Not only is she super useful because she comes on a flying steed and she has really good bases and is probably one of the only characters you have in this game that will reliably double even on hard 5. But she has her own personal weapon, the Wing Spear, which is ridiculously good, especially when forged, considering like, I think what, 90% of the bosses in this game is like either a Cavalier, Paladin, Armor Knight, or General, or something along those lines. So she does like one of your best boss killers ever. The only thing that holds her a little bit back is her icky 20% strength growth, but that doesn't matter when she has effective damage. You can forge the Wing Spear and she pretty much one-shots everything in the game. 85% speed growth ensures that she will keep doubling even in the endgame. And while she is a little bit frail, I mean, just try to keep her out of range of enemies. Of course, archers will one-shot her, so will mostly anything else that comes in her way, but she's actually going to be pretty fucking pivotal on this map. I give Caeda 5 out of 5 stars. Easily one of the best units in Shadow Dragon. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's the best unit in the game by far. As you said, the best boss killer possible. Wing Spear is really good when forged. I think she's everything that Marth wishes he could be. Other than female, I guess. I mean,
you never know what Marth wants.
So the thing about Caeda is she outranges enemies that she has effective damage on, or she can at least sit at a spot where she can attack next turn from a really good position. So that makes her really flexible. Flying alone is of course a really big perk, even in a game where you cannot rescue, because there's a lot of terrain that you can occupy. What else is really good about Caeda? Her promotion to Draco Knight is really good for her because it fixes all of her weaknesses. As you said, her strength is an issue and her durability can be a problem. Both of those get huge boosts whenever she promotes. I don't remember exactly how much, but I do know they're pretty big. And as you said, she doubles a lot. But the thing about Shadow Dragon also is you want to one-hit KO enemies with forged effective weapons a lot, so you don't take these huge counter damage. And Caeda's really good at that if you forge her Wing Spear to like +4 or +5. Whereas Marth, even if you do like +6 rapier, he just can't do it. So that's what makes Caeda so much more effective than he and really any other unit in the game. The Wing Spear is also really accurate, I think.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's really good. Also, her base durability, I actually don't think is very bad. 7 defense is really good for a level 1 unit.
So what do you rate her?
5 stars, easily.
Yeah, well, we agree on something. That's good. Anyway, speaking of good units, here is Jagen the Paladin. Jagen, of course, the original Jagen. He spawned the entire archetype. And, you know, he's pretty much what you'd expect. Really good basis for his join time. Comes with a Silver Lance, which is going to be infinitely useful in this map. And, yeah, he's just great. I mean, his growth rates aren't high, but as Mecha would say, growth rates don't matter. And Jagen's usefulness is further increased by the fact that he can reclass, particularly to a Draco Knight, once you get access to that, which puts him on a flying mount and gives him access, which is really, really good. So he will, of course, drop off eventually, but I still rate him 5 out of 5 stars because he is so useful in the first 4 or 5 chapters of this game, which are incredibly hard on Hard 5.
Yes, even like early game, yeah, you do need a crush like Jagen to do a lot of reliable damage with the Silver Lance, of course. And when he can reclass the Draco Knight, he can also manipulate the weapon triangle even better than he already could. And of course, Paladin and Draco Knight are just great classes to have access to, especially when you have beat lances, and that way you can use the Silver Lance. But I think beyond chapter 5 or so, Jagen remains useful for almost the entire game thanks to forged effective weaponry. I think because of that, he can still contribute to like taking out a group of cavaliers just by trading around the Rider's Bane, a forced one, which is the Horse Slayer for this game. So yeah, I agree with a 5 out of 5 rating for Jagen. I think Caeda is overall a little better, but not enough to like lessen the amount of stars he gets. Really good unit.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we should do 10 stars, but I just like 5 better.
I told you, like, at the start of the FA7 LP, I told you to do 10 like, out of 10 ratings, but you were like, no, I like my 5-star system.
It's a better one. Easier to animate. Anyway, alright, so let's move on to the 2 Cavaliers, starting with Abel. So Abel and Cain, they come in pairs. They're pretty similar in this game, although I find Abel to be the better one, since Abel starts with a lance rank high enough to use Javelin, whereas Cain starts with a higher sword rank, so he can't use Javelins at base. But Abel's pretty alright. I mean, he's a very good... I want to call him a social knight because that's what I'm used to, but I know it's a cavalier. You know, he's pretty decent growth rates in all areas. There's really nothing bad about him. Good movements, good bases, good growths. He starts out good, he ends up good. I rate him a 4 out of 5 stars because he's not like Caeda or Jagen tier, but he is very useful in his own right, and I don't think giving a Cavalier anything below a 4 out of 5 stars does them justice, because they are easily one of the best classes in the game by far, particularly when they promote the Paladins.
Yeah, you can go ahead and do Cain if you want, because my thoughts on them are pretty similar, so you might as well rate them both at once, right?
Right, okay, Cain's completely the same. I mean, the only difference between Abel and Cain in this game, except for the weapon ranks, is that Cain has slightly less strength and hit points, but he has an 80% luck growth as opposed to Abel's 25% luck growth. And that is pretty much, you know, aside from small variances in bases, they are literally the same units. So yeah, I also rate Cain 4 out of 5 stars.
Yeah. I definitely agree Abel is better than Cain by actually a significant amount. I'm not sure if it's enough for like an entire star rating, but I do think I like Abel at like 4 stars and Cain more closer to a 3-star. And the reason I say this is, well, the lance rank is really the big difference here. Not just because Abel gets to avoid counters with the Javelin, but also because it puts him an entire rank closer to C, which lets him use Rider's Bane. That's a really big thing because, as I said, with like Jagen and Caeda, effective weaponry is so important in this game, and if you can't use it, and Cain will never be able to use the Rider's Bane until much later, and it's a huge pain to get him there to begin with. Yeah. So that's why I think that's important. And also the point of speed that Abel has at base over Cain is really significant. It actually gets Cain doubled by some enemies, including, I think, the Chapter 1 boss. And that's really, really annoying to deal with and hard to fix if you don't get lucky with the speed growth. Yeah. And Abel has the better strength growth anyway. And the speed is similar. Yeah, the speed growth is the same from what I can see, unless your notes are wrong.
No, they're the same.
So yeah, that's why I like Abel a lot better.
Right. Alright, then, of course, we have everyone's favorite armor knight. It's the Doga! Doga!
Choke this point.
He will choke this point. Hahaha! Fresh beam. Doga's your first armor knight, and while I don't like armor knights, I find that, you know, Doga does definitely serve his purpose pretty useful in the first few chapters, because you are actually in need of someone who can take a few hits, and Doga definitely can take a few hits. The only problem is he suffers weapon triangle disadvantage from a lot of the axe-wielding enemies of the first chapters. He was originally actually a sword armor knight in the first games, but they changed him to a lance armor knight in the later ones, which kind of screwed him over.
You could use swords in the original, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, he could. Yeah, he was a sword armor knight in the first game. Yeah, you know, Doga's growth rates are pretty shit. I mean, 20% strength growth, lol. Even his defense growth of 30% isn't fantastic, but he comes with base 11 defense, so he's pretty tough. I think he can take like 4 hits or something in this chapter on hard 5, which is definitely very useful, because you do, as I said, you do need someone who can take a bit of punishments when you face the sea of pirates that we're about to take on. So I give Doga 3 out of 5 stars. He's alright, not fantastic, but he serves his purpose well enough.
Yeah, and just for clarification, in the original Armor Knights all could use swords and lances, and Doga could use both, of course. Yeah, I just looked it up in FU1.
Oh.
So that's why you could use swords, and that was really nice. I mean, there was no weapon triangle back then, but it's nice to be able to use lighter weapons, I guess. I haven't studied FE1 in depth, so I won't go too far.
No, you're right.
As far as this game goes, Doga is funny, because as an Armor Knight, he's really good for this chapter, because he's your second most durable unit. And he can dish out some punishment and also use javelins. So I think in a way that makes him better than Cain, which is hilarious when you think about it. But then from chapter 2 and onwards, he gets doubled by all the axe enemies, and suddenly he gets 1 round KO'd because they also get more strength. So he becomes much less useful from there on out. A funny thing about Doga is that in order for that Armor Knight's base speed to be 3, they actually had to give him a really high personal base speed. And that means that if you reclass him to like a pirate or a mercenary or whatever the hell you can make him, or like a hunter, he gets insane speed, and his defense also drops like 1,000,000 points. So it becomes a very different unit when you reclass him.
I've heard
and
this,
in this
actually.
game, it doesn't... Sorry?
I've heard about this, actually. People say that you can reclass him to a Dark Mage, and he actually turns into sort of like a glass cannon.
Yeah, he becomes really fast and really frail, and I think that's really funny in FE12 because he has these supports that talk about how durable he is with my unit or something. But if you reclass him to like anything but an Armor Knight, he is anything but that.
Yeah, I mean,
but anyway,
he only got a really strong armor, but the guy underneath the armor is weak as hell.
Yeah, it's really unlike the FE1 LP where he just goes, Doga is not invincible because of his armor, and Doga is invincible because he's Doga.
Oh god, I love that. I love that.
Yeah, I love that too.
It's so
good. Anyway, Doga. As far as growth units go, I think Cain and Abel are like already scraping the bare minimum of what you need to be if you want to be a good unit in a growth playthrough, or rather, if you're trying to raise a unit, they're like the minimum of what you need to be, because this game isn't very kind to growth units because of the way EXP is gained and the way that chapters work, especially if you warp skip it. I won't go into detail, but basically I don't really like Doga much as a unit beyond the first chapter or so. Also, reclassing changes his weapon rank to like an E rank no matter what he does, so that kind of sucks. And building weapon rank is also really hard in this game. So I'd say Doga is like 2 out of 5 or something. Not that great of a unit, but really fun.
Alright, so I do believe we reviewed every single unit. I don't think there's any other like viable units left. Do you?
No, there's no viable units left.
We didn't forget about anyone, did we?
No, I don't think so.
No, I don't. Oh, who's this guy? Oh, Gordin.
I don't know.
Oh, look.
That's just a generic archer. That's fine.
Ah, okay. Anyway, enough jokes. But Marth. So yeah, Gordin right here. I have a weird relationship with Gordin. I actually like him a lot. 5 points. Mostly just because of the anime. He's hilarious in the fucking anime. He's the best character ever. As a unit, he sucks. He's an archer. 1 out of 5 stars. Terrible unit. Nuts. I mean, but there's nothing to say about him really. He's just bad.
I can think of a few things, but go ahead.
I mean, you need ship damage here because the pirates are tough, so he definitely serves his purpose. But yeah, I don't like Gordin. I mean, terrible. Archers luck to 2 range, but I guess he could. Aside from that, he has some uses. It's just I don't know how to rank archers anything above a 1 out of 5 stars. But maybe you can enlighten me, Mecca.
So in chapter 1 he's actually really good because his ranged weapon is like the best for everyone, because everyone is throwing these javelins at like 50 hit or 60 hit or something, and he just comes in with a steel bow and he does more damage at more accurate hit rates, so that makes him a really good unit for chapter 1. But beyond that, yeah, he has the same problem as usual where his stats are shit, and he has 5 movement, and he actually gets really bad terrain penalties too, which is just rubbing salt in the wound to an extreme extent. So Gordin obviously isn't very good, and you also recruit like much better archers and hunters and snipers later on to kind of obsolete him. Yes, like Jeorge. I will say that Gordin is like a pretty good unit in like FE3 book 2 or something, but like if I'm talking about that game while reviewing him in Shadow Dragon, you'd know that he's got a problem in this game. So yeah, 1 out of 5 seems pretty good.
But more!
Alright.
2 out of 5 maybe for his early game utility, because there's units in this game that don't even have that.
Alright, so we're done talking.
I am right in many regards.
Hey, it's me! I am Magnus, a humble carrot. I cannot fight, but the staff I carry can heal your wounded. Mecca, you have to say this.
Take me with you, and you'll be very glad you did.
Yeah! Alright, so I do believe we have to hold back on Wrys a little bit though. But first, let's talk about the best priest in the game. It's the Wrys! Just gonna scroll down on my notes, there we go. So Wrys, first healer you get, I mean, for all intents and purposes, he's just a walking heal staff. He has pretty shit growth rates, but his stats don't really matter, you just want him to heal. His staff rank is pretty low, but if you spam staves enough with him, you can get him up to warp level eventually, which makes him pretty useful in that regard. He'll never be a combat unit, never place him in enemy range. This is not Fire Emblem 1 where turrets get experience from surviving combat, so just keep him back, and you'll be very glad you did. So I give him a 3 out of 5 stars because, you know, he's just a heal staff, you know? That's all I can say about him. I don't think he's viable enough to be a 4 or 5 star unit, but in terms of utility, he's pretty good. He's pretty much a must-use until you get Rena, and then after you get Rena, you pretty much gotta use him anyway, because staffs are pretty good in this game. So yeah.
Pretty good for the Vulnerary, 3 out of 5.
Yep, pretty much. Would have preferred the Vulnerary though. Would have been nice with the Vulnerary right about now.
I don't know, man. This is like a guy that can use a Vulnerary.
Anyway, so there are some new units right here. Actually, a lot of new units. Starting with probably one of my favorite characters in the Akanaya saga. It is Ogma. Ogma. He's great. He's absolutely great. He spawned his own type of archetypes, simply known as the Good Mercenary. Being sword lock does not hold Ogma back. Certainly not. I mean, I'd love for the guy to be able to throw hand axes and javelins, but I don't care, because Ogma is one of the few units in Hard 5 that can actually reliably double. Look at those bases. 12 base speed. I mean, he's almost as fast as Caeda. It's amazing. His growth rates are pretty respectable across the board. They're not great, but they're decent enough combined with his amazing bases. And yeah, Ogma's just fantastic. I love him. He's one of the few units that can actually take a few hits. And as I said, being able to reliably double in Hard 5 is very rare. He won't do it with his Steel Sword though, because weight actually does exist in this game. But with his Iron Sword, I do believe he doubles these parts as base, but I don't think he does it with the Steel Sword. I rate Ogma 4 out of 5. I mean, he would have been a 5 out of 5 if he was like a Paladin or something, or like if he had a mount. But I do believe, no, you can't reclass him to, you can reclass him to Knight, Fighter, Hunter, Pirate, and Dark Mage. You can't give him a mount, sadly. But as a hero, he will absolutely blow the roof off the house with hand axes and shit. He is amazing. Give him a Dragon Killer and he slaughters the Mankits of the endgame. So what do you think about Mecha? Mecha, what do you think about Mecha, Ogma?
I think Mecha is really good. You know, his commentary is just right on top of his game. He knows the best about every unit, and he's really good at directing Manx' facts. So, for example, one Manx fact is that Ogma reliably doubles. From my experience, he can double, but he's kind of shaky on it late game. It's been a really long time since I used Ogma like long term. His main cell is definitely early game, where he doubles all these axe users. But just like Marth, he faces that issue where the rest of the game is like all lance enemies, and that means you have to reclass him to fighter, and he definitely stops doubling if you reclass him to fighter. Then when you promote him to like hero, he gets the best of both worlds, axes and swords. I don't remember if he gets D or E on promotion, but if he gets E, I don't think he can use hand axes, and that's a big problem, because it means he will take counters a lot.
I don't remember. I can edit it in post-production, I guess, when we figure it out.
Yeah. And he only has 30% speed growth, so it's not going to go up all that much, whereas enemies do get quite a bit faster. So I wouldn't call Ogma anyone who can blow the roof off the house, but his early game is really good, so I'd still give him like 3 stars out of 5. Just because of how good he is in these early hard chapters. I
just remember playing Hard 5 and Ogma just completely carrying my late game team, but that could just very well be 2011 Manx being terrible. You never know.
I mean, Hero does have good promotion bonuses, so it's possible that he was good at some point. I just don't think he's a really good example of a late game monster. I would give that to Barst, probably.
Right. So, speaking of Barsts, nope, yeah, there we go. You get 3 fighters, although chances are you're only going to use one of them. We can take the best one for first. It's Barsts. Yeah, this game actually gives you 3 fighters as opposed to usually you get 2, but this game's like, no, we want to be original. Actually, it's a remake of the first game, so I guess it is original. Anyway,
they did it first. Gaga did it first.
They did it first. Barst's great. He has very good bases for a fighter, which is something you normally don't see in Fire Emblem. 9 base speed and 10 base strength is pretty good. He also has the best growth rates among the 3 fighters, if I remember correctly. He has like not insane growth rates, but they're decent enough, like 40% strength, 40% skill, 30% speed. It's alright. And when he promotes to a warrior, he will become a powerhouse that can most likely one-round generals with hammers. So I really like Barst for that reason alone. And again, he's really going to be of great help here. Of course, he's going to be facing off against mostly axe users here, but soon enough, you're going to start facing cavalry after cavalry after cavalry, and that weapon triangle advantage will come in handy, to say the least. So, I rate Barst a 3 out of 5 star unit. He's alright. He's not quite Ogma tier, but he's definitely one step below.
I'm really surprised you rated Barst lower than Ogma, because I think Barst is much better. I mean, sure, early game, Ogma can double, and that makes his damage output a little better, but don't underrate Barst's damage output even early game, because I think he's one of the few characters who can 2-hit KO enemy pirates with that steel axe. I don't remember the numbers quite, but I think he's pretty close. And he can also use the devil axe soon, which also really makes him, I think, the guy with highest attack for a little while.
I love devil axe.
Yeah, I know the devil axe is like, it has a problem, but in this game it's probably like the best devil axe there ever is.
Yeah, because it has like 100 hit or something, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's insane. I don't understand why they made it so inaccurate in other games, because it already has like an innate, I would say, inaccuracy to it with the recoil. And yeah, Barst is just a really good user of that, and he can use hand axes at base, unlike one of these other two fighters. His axe rank is like right in the middle at D, which is kind of awkward, but good enough to like use steel and hand axes. And he can get to C pretty quickly, and then use the hammer to 1-hit KO knights if you forge it. I don't think he can 1-hit KO generals, but he can double and KO them. His late game offense after he promotes the hero and he fixes his average speed is really good.
Hero? You mean warrior, right?
No. Make him a hero, dude.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
you promote him to warrior, I guess, if he stays in this class, but you reclass him to hero.
Oh, okay.
Because that class is so much better. He gets access to, well, I guess swords versus bows doesn't matter much, but the speed is much better on hero.
Right.
And the durability is about the same, if not better, too. So hero Barst is really good.
Okay.
There was one other thing. Oh, yeah. There is no early game halberd, or in this game it's called poleaxe. It takes a while before you get one. That kind of sucks, because it means he doesn't get effective weaponry against mounted units, but he's still like one of the better units against them, and at some point does get the poleaxe, and that also makes him as good against those as like Caeda or Jagen or whoever's using lances. So I think Barst is all around really good unit. I would say he's a 4 out of 5.
Alright, speaking of a unit who's not 4 out of 5, Cord. So Cord, what can we say about Cord really?
He's fast.
He's fast. I mean, he's got decent speed growth, and I think that's the only good thing about him. I mean, the 50% strength, 40% speed. He might seem good to a new player's eyes, but E rank and Axis pretty shitty bases, at least compared to Bards. And yeah, he has also 20% skill growth, so he'll really struggle to hit things. I personally, like, I have a friend who claims that Cord's a really good armor knight, but I've yet to try this, and it doesn't really sound feasible in my opinion.
Sounds bad.
Yeah, I don't think he was playing hard 5, so yeah, Cord's pretty shit unit. Let's see, I actually have to scroll down in my notes, but I give him a 1 out of 5 star. Yeah, I don't really see any uses for him. Not even reclassing wise, I don't really know what you do with him.
I think he's pretty similar to Draug in that they both have pretty low weapon ranks in the classes you want them to be. Cord has like no good class where he has like good weapon ranks, but his stats are decent. The speed in particular is pretty good. So if you're gonna play this game really slowly and level him up and get him some kind of weapon rank, he can make a pretty good hunter or fighter if you want him to. But he's definitely inferior to Barst. But he is a pretty fast, so I would still give him like a 2 out of 5.
Right. Alright, Board, last fighter. Board has 1 saving grace, and that is a really high axe rank. He can use the hammer at base. Sadly, you don't really face any armor knights in the early game. I think they start popping up in like 2 or 3 chapters, if I remember correctly. So it's not like that hammer is going to see much use. But yeah, the big problem with Board is that 10% speed growth. His speed will pretty much never increase on its own, so it's just stuck at 7. It's fine for the early game, because he's probably not going to get doubled by some of the pirates, but give or take a few chapters, he's going to start getting doubled by everything, and at which point he will just become completely useless. But because he has that high axe rank, I do rate him a little bit higher than Cord, so I rate him at 2 out of 5 stars, simply because he has some utility in weapon ranks, but that's about it. I don't know what you have to say about him.
Yeah, the axe rank is nice. It boosts his accuracy a little bit, which would otherwise be shaky. I think one of his main problems is not just the speed growth, but also the speed base is like 2 points lower than his 2 other fighter friends, so he does get doubled a little bit earlier. But the C rank does let him use the hammer on early game knights if you need him to. I don't think you have the time to forge the hammer before you have to forge other good weapons, so you're probably not going to want to KO, but he can get some meaty chipping, I guess. But I still don't not rate him any higher than 2 out of 5.
Alright, so we'll talk about the other characters when they show up.
Fetch the blue paint.
I was gonna say it. You stole the line. Alright, Darros. Darros. Good old Darros. Fun fact, in Fire Emblem 1 he had a 0% skill growth. I always thought that was hilarious. In Shadow Dragon they gave him a skill growth though. I actually gotta scroll down my notes to see his stats. Darros is not good. 60% strength growth, really strong. 10% speed growth, lovely. He was actually faster in Fire Emblem 1. I mean, he can walk on water, and you might think that that's useful, but I don't think there's a single scenario in which this is good. Like, I think
you're wrong, but
oh really?
You might think. Well, the thing is, walking on water is nice in some chapters, but you can reclass fighters to pirates to do the same thing, so it's not really a unique trait of Darros.
That is a good point. So yeah, Darros, I mean, I like him in Fire Emblem 12, because he joins as a berserker, but in this game I don't really see him to be particularly useful. His D rank in Axis, I do believe he gets one-rounded by almost every single enemy on this map.
Yeah, but that's supposedly because he comes with the steel axe. It's not really his fault. He has the same base speed as Board, so if you give him an iron axe, he would be okay, but he's still really bad.
But yeah, I mean, I rate Darros a 2 out of 5 stars, same as the other fighters. He's basically just like them. There's really nothing unique about him, other than the fact that he's very slow. So, yeah.
Yeah, he does have, I think he has a 100% defense growth if he reclasses into a knight, which is a funny gimmick for, like, really casual, lower difficulty playthroughs, but his base defense isn't good enough to start tanking at base, so... Rip.
Interesting. Yeah, what do you rate him?
1 out of 5.
Oh, savage. Now, I don't know, it's mostly like the writing and shit. Anyway, Castor, Hunter, better than Gordin, I'd say. He has slightly better bases and decent growth rates. He does promote into a horseman, but that requires you to actually...
What are his growth rates? I don't see your notes. I don't see him on your notes. You need to scroll down.
Let's see. He has by Shadow Dragon standards, he has okay growth. It's like 40% strength.
Yeah, they're okay.
40% skill, 40% speed, but mostly, I mean, he's a hunter. Hunters are basically, they have more strength than archers, but they can also move in forests pretty easily, and they promote to horsemen, which are basically like...
And they have 6 moves instead of 5, and they take less train penalties.
They're basically just better archers, but being a better archer is like being a slightly less smelly turd. It's like, it's not charming either way. If you drop a turd on my doorstep, I'm not gonna like it, even if it is a slightly less smelly turd. So I did give him 1 out of 5 stars, because I just don't see any use for him, to be fair. I mean, he can reclass, but I don't really know if there's any good reclassing options for him. I'm not really that well versed in the reclassing department, but I do know like Castor's a pretty shit unit, so that's why I give him 1 out of 5 stars.
Yeah, it's probably best off not reclassing, because then he gets to keep his deep bows, and that's really what makes him an archer, even though technically he can go like knight or mercenary or fighter or whatever. But he's good in none of these, because his growths don't really stand out in any way, and his bases are, I think they're also like 0 or -1 for almost every stat. So he's just like, Cord and Draug are like infinitely better than this guy at anything but being a bow user, and he's not a very good bow user to begin with.
Yeah.
So,
but
1 out of 5 or 2 out of 5 is fine.
Yeah, but he chips in the early game, which is, chip damage always good against DC.
Yeah, you can use the steel bow. That's really nice.
Yeah. So, you need chip damage when going up against these inflated blobs of hit points of pirates. So, yeah, we need to... you gotta go talk to these 2 guys over here. Let's talk about the new guys that we just got. Start out as blue units. It's Julian! I forgot to put up his growth rates in my notes, but I remember them being pretty high, although Mecca says they don't matter, so I guess that's probably...
No growth matter, so maybe I'm a little biased there.
Well, what can we say about...
I'm actually looking up the growth right now, so keep talking.
Alright, so basically, what can we say about Julian? I feel like thieves get a bit shafted in Shadow Dragon, mainly because in a couple of chapters, Marth will get access to the Fire Emblem, and the Fire Emblem will allow him to open treasure chests. So, the only really reason you want to bring Julian is to open doors. Or if Marth needs to be elsewhere, of course. That is often the case. So, he can fight, thieves can promote, but they can grow to level 30. He actually has really high growth rates. The only problem is he starts out with pretty low bases, although his speed is really good. Again, Julian is one of those characters who can actually double in Hard 5. But I think Julian is pretty alright. I'd give him like a 3 out of 5 stars, because, you sometimes need to bring him to map to open chests and stuff, but as far as the fighting unit, he's probably not going to see all that much combat. What do you have to say about Julian?
I'll just remind you, his growths are, they're pretty good. It's like 50% strength, 50% skill, and 50% speed. So all those are pretty decent, but not good enough to make up for his bases. Like, not to the point where he's worth training. You still just want to pick blocks with him. Because like I said with Matthew, chests tend to not fight back on either the doors, so that's really good for Julian. I'd say he's like a 2 stars. There's like a lot of chests in this game, but there's also another thief who you get pretty quickly. And you don't get too many keys, although you do get viable door keys, so that diminishes his value a little bit. So I'd say 2 stars is fair for him.
Yep. All right. Then we got Lena. I tend to call her Rena because I'm an old school fag. But yeah, Lena, she's really good. She is your second healer, but unlike Wrys, she actually has growth rates. Not that they actually matter though, because for the most part, she's just a walking staff bot. But she does come with Tea and Staves, which allows her to use the warp staff at base. And wouldn't you know it, she starts that with the warp staff in her inventory, which is, you know, if you don't know how good the warp staff is in Shadow Dragon, well, you know. Well, to be fair, I didn't know first time I played either, but it's really fucking good, guys. You also get a lot of them. I think you get like 3 or 4 warp staffs over the course of a playthrough. More than you will ever need, let's just put it that way. However, Lena will also get access to the Hamern staff, which is exclusive to her. You get it like I think you get it in the Camus chapter, like somewhere in the mid to late game.
Late game, yeah. I would call it late.
Yeah, and that's very useful because you can, you know, Hammer the Wing Spare for Caeda and other good forges. And since Lena is the only one who can use the Hammer staff and you can't use it during the battle preparation, she is one of the more viable characters, I'd say. So I actually rate Lena 5 out of 5 stars because she's one of those units that you just tend to field every single chapter because healing is important and staves are even more important. So I always find myself fielding Lena for every single chapter.
Yeah, I only tend to use Hammer to repair the warp. I don't think there's much value in repairing forges unless you're playing kind of slowly, which I guess some people do. So whatever.
Hello,
yeah,
Manx here.
Whatever. I know. I should remember. I'm not commentating with Donut anymore. I'm not commentating with Rangor. I'm commentating with Manx. All right.
Even better.
Okay. So I guess I'll shift my focus to things that matter less. Lena's growth rates. I was looking up growth rates anyway. They're kind of peculiar. She has a 15% HP growth, which is like one of the lowest in the series.
She's never gonna grow.
Yeah, and as a cleric, she has 25% magic growth, but then if she promotes to bishop, she has 35 all of a sudden. Not that her magic matters, because warp is infinite range anyway, and so is physic, and so is fortify, so it really doesn't matter. All it does is determine how much she heals, but I don't even think magic does all that much, changes all that much about how much you heal, and her base is terrible anyway, so whatever. 5 out of 5. Warp is too good.
Exactly. Basically, I mean, it's not Lena we're rating, it's the warp staff, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's 7 use warp staffs that you can use immediately, and you get another right as this one runs out, basically. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. I guess you can use Caeda to get it.
Oh shit, we haven't talked about Navarre.
No, but who cares? He's a shit unit.
We forgot to talk about Navarre.
Okay,
let's
talk about Navarre. He's shit next.
Alright, Navarre. Really? Shit? I'd give him...
Nah, fine. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Navarre, ladies and gentlemen. We completely forgot to talk about him. So here he is. Navarre, he is a Myrmidon in this game. I think this is the first game he's a Myrmidon in. You'd think he'd be pretty fast, but he actually only has a 35% speed growth. But that's because growth rates are generally pretty low in this game. He does have a rather nice base speed of 11 though, so if you're a little bit lucky with your speed level ups, he could... Actually, no, I don't think he'll ever double. Not on hard 5 at the end, right? His growth rate is actually really low, which is kind of interesting. He does come with the Killing Edge, which is very useful, but you can give this away to Ogma or something. But
I love how you're just talking him down and then he's like gonna...
Yeah, I think I was actually gonna give him 4 stars, but I think I'm gonna bump his rating down to 3 stars because 3 out of 5. Because after looking at him, I realized that he's not a 4-star unit. 3 stars.
Implying that... Look at Manx, he's like, after actually taking a look at this unit, I decided he's not as good as I thought he was. So you basically just rated him on looks or something. Or like, not even looks, because you didn't look at him. You just rated him on your perception of Navarre.
I changed my mind. Anyway, what do you have to say about Navarre?
Okay, so he's actually not that fast. It's just a Myrmidon class is really fast, but if you reclass him to Cavalier, he's really fucking slow. He's like Cain level speed. He gets doubled by things. It's really stupid. The only good thing about Navarre is his C sword rank at base. I think it's a little less than C if you reclass him to Cavalier. Not sure. I'm not completely sure on that. But anyway, sword rank is okay for the access to Killing Edge, Armor Slayer, some other stuff that I don't remember off the top of my head. So he's okay, but he's not the best Cavalier by any shot, and swords aren't very good in this game, because after this chapter, axes are pretty much done, and it's all lances, and that makes Navarre really weak. Because his lance rank as a Cavalier is E, so he can't even use javelins, and he's going to be really weak. So I'd say Navarre is 2.5 stars for me, maybe 3. He's one of the better bad units, but he's not that good.
Right. Okay. Anyway, now we talked about Navarre. Alright, so I was making a Julian joke. Get it? Anyway, Matthis, bad unit.
Yeah, he has generic Cavalier bases.
So bad.
What's the point of this unit?
I mean, I'm rating him a 2 out of 5 stars just because he has a mount, but even that is generous for this idiot. Like
you can reclass into a mount, yay! Like almost everyone can do that.
Yeah, I guess. Still,
I think it's actually best in like a casual playthrough where you like reclass him to like curate or priest or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Get his level 10 and then promote him.
Yeah,
that
could work. That could work. But yeah, I mean, what is there to say about Matthis really? I mean, 20% speed growth. Wow, that's bad. His bases suck. He's worse than Cain and Abel in the first chapter. And enemies have grown a lot at this point. You're breathing into the microphone a little bit. But it's like... Thanks. So, yeah, there is really nothing. Is there any saving grace for this guy, Mecha?
He's bench juice. Especially squeezed bench juice.
So what do you rate him?
1 out of 5.
Yeah, I'm actually contemplating reverting my ranking, but I'll keep the 2 out of 5 because I think that there might be something you can do with this guy. But
I mean, he's better than a late unit that doesn't do anything because at least if he joins early, you can get him leveled up if you really want to.
That is true. All right. Anyway, we have some guys to kill. We gotta kill them. All right. Enter Merric, the first mate you get. Well, if you didn't reclass. Merric's pretty fucking good. Of course, he has pretty balanced growth rates in all areas. Like, his bases are a bit icky, but it doesn't matter because enemy resistance is so low anyway. He ends up dealing a lot of damage. His speed is alright. I doubt he'll double in hard 5 though. But Merric's saving grace, of course, is his personal tome, the Excalibur, which is just really, really good and has a shit ton of crit and very accurate. I think 100% accuracy. And I also think that it's effective against flyers in this game.
Yes.
Yeah, which is not great now, but eventually when you get into like the Macedon arc and you start facing Vyland riders, Excalibur becomes really good. And usually it's just a really solid tome. Don't remember if you get another one in this game, but at any rate you can't hammer it if you're not doing like a warp run. So I really rate Merric highly. I rate him 4 out of 5 stars. He would have been a 5 out of 5 star unit if he like had a mount or something or better bases, but I think 4 out of 5 stars is decent for him because again, personal tome pretty good. Effective damage is pretty much where it's at in this game. So yeah, what do you think about Merric?
I love Merric. Really, really cool character. Really cool personal tome. His bases, like his default bases, aren't actually the H class itself has really bad bases. Merric has 3 speed, for example, which is tied with Draug, who you know is really fast if you reclass him. And it's higher than Ogma, Barst, Gordin, a bunch of characters that you would think of as fast at base. So if you would reclass Merric into a different class, it would be pretty fast, but Mage is a shitty class stat-wise. So there. Well, Excalibur is really good. You do get another one, but it's so late it doesn't even matter. There's like no flyers after that anyway. You can't forge Excalibur, which is unfortunate, but it one-hit kills Pegasus Knights, and I think it even one-shots Drago Knights, but it depends on the magic, I think. His base magic is actually a personal 0, which is unfortunate, but Excalibur does so much damage that it doesn't matter anyway. 1-2 range is really helpful in this game because the enemies, they hit very hard, and you don't want to face a counter, right? So we can people with Merric very well, and then get the kill with someone else if you want to. It takes a while for him to double. I think Excalibur weighs him down a little bit. I had the stats pulled up right here. Yeah, oh, never mind. It only weighs 1, so he gets weighed down by 1, which kind of sucks, but still a really good character. There's another character that can use Excalibur, actually. Merric gets some kind of bonus personal thing where he can use it with an E in tomes, but anyone with a B in tomes can use it.
Right.
But early on, that's only 2 people. So it's basically his personal weapon unless Wendell wants to use it.
Oh, Wendell. We'll get to him later. Yeah, star rating?
4 stars, by the way.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. All right. That's so.
Really good.
Let's start with one of the best ones, Hardin. Hardin is really, really good. Again, this game throws a lot of cavaliers at you. This one in particular happened to be my favorite. I think it's kind of weird that in the last chapter we were given, last chapter we were given a silver sword, and he said like give the silver sword to Hardin, which might imply that he could use it. I think he could in Fire Emblem 1 and Fire Emblem 3.
Yeah, his weapon level was 1 stat.
Yeah, so, but here he actually comes with D rank in sword, so he can't use that silver sword. But he does come with an astonishingly good B rank in lances, which is really high for a cavalier. In fact, Hardin has one of the highest base levels of any cavalier in Shadow Dragon. He's level 6, and his bases are also really solid. He will usually be on par with Cain and Abel in the base stat department, depending on like how much you train them. And Hardin has really good growth rates as well. 55% speed growth, really solid. His strength is a little low at 30%, but he comes with a very generous base strength of 9. And all of his other stats are really solid on average. The only, like, really low growth rate he has is, like, hit points at 50%, which is kind of low by Shadow Dragon standards. But aside from that, I really like Hardin a lot. I rate him 4 out of 5 stars. He's definitely on par with Cain and Abel, and I'm probably going to use him because he's pretty good.
Yeah, I think if it weren't for the contributions of Abel and Cain, most people would agree that Hardin is better. I mean, you said your Cain had like really good level ups in the first few chapters. Can you go over his bases real quick to compare them to Hardin, like to put the cursor on him
Sure,
for a moment?
we can.
Yeah. See, like Cain, you said he got really good level ups, and he's only had 2, and he's inferior to Hardin. So if you can go back to Hardin now, so Hardin is better, basically, at this point. He's a better unit.
He also has 3 more levels, though, but I know that doesn't matter in the big scheme of things.
Speed gain is pretty high in Shadow Dragon anyway, and it actually gets him closer to a quick promotion if you want to give him one. So I would actually count that in favor of Hardin more than I would count it against him. D swords is also nice. I think Abel has E swords at base, and you're never going to get to D by this chapter, I don't believe. So I think Hardin is like 4 out of 5 for sure. Probably the best Cavalier from here on out.
Yeah. Alright, speaking of Cavaliers who are not 4 out of 5, let's start with Vyland. Oh my god, Vyland. Why? Oh, he's so bad. So, we got this Cavalier, right? He joins in Chapter 5. He's level 1. He has the lowest base stats of any Cavalier. I think he's on par with Matthis. So you'd think, like, by Fire Emblem logic, like, yeah, his growth should be really high, right? Because he's the Ests, quote-unquote. But no! His growth rates are horrible! 30% strength, like, 25% skill. Like, his speed growth is the best thing about him at 40%. The rest of his growth rates are garbage. I don't really know what they even thought about with this guy. Like, what purpose does he fill? Like, why is he here? He's just a inferior Cavalier.
He's here to be inferior to Hardin. That's his purpose.
Yeah, I guess that's why he's here. And there's just... I get that not every character should be viable, but Vyland just perplexes me because he doesn't even have one redeeming trait in his entire toolkit. Like, the only thing I can think about is, like, a somewhat decent base defense of 7. Aside from that, no, not really. His weapon ranks are kind of lackluster. At least he can use javelins. But, yeah, aside from that, I really don't know what to rate Vyland other than a 1 out of 5 stars. He is a really shitty character, in my opinion.
He is a meme in Japan, though, so 5 stars. Okay, so seriously though, so Matthis, he is a generic Cavalier, except for 2 HP, and that's it. Everything else about him is generic bases. Vyland, he 1-ups Matthis. He also has 1 point of skill and 2 points of luck. Other than that, he has generic Cavalier bases, so 1 out of 5.
Yep, that's pretty much it. Alright, and then we got his buddy Roshea. How do you pronounce this stupid name?
I think I say Roshea.
Roshea.
I never have to pronounce it because I never use him, so...
Yeah.
Like, when I was commentating with Don, I never had to say his name, because, you know, who cares?
Roshea. Anyway, he's Vyland, but with 2 extra levels. 2 out of 5.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, he has, like, 1 more strength, 2 more skill, 1 more speed. His bases are, like, significantly better if you look at absolutes, but they're still pretty trash overall. So I think we can agree it's the same rating as Vyland.
Yeah, I actually gave him 2 out of 5 because he's 2 extra levels, but I don't know. I guess I might have to, I retract that shit. I go down to 1 out of 5. Change it mid recording. Professional. 10% speed growth. Why is he here? He's so bad. 10%.
Look good.
10% speed. Why is he so? I don't get it. Anyway, let's talk about some good characters.
Okay.
Whoa.
Hardin.
We talked about him already. So Wolf. New players might have one look at Wolf and they go like, what? What's this? Well, first of all, in Fire Emblem 1 and 3, the Horseman wasn't a promoted unit. It was kind of like just a class on its own. Which is why I think Wolf and Sedgar in particular are very weirdly designed, because they wanted them to be Horsemen, but they made Horseman tier 2 classes. So they didn't want to give us 2 really strong pre-promotes, so instead what they did was that they gave us 2 pre-promotes with around the same basis as everyone else, but they just inflated their growth rates to absurd levels to make sure that they would have some way of not just getting obsolete. So if you take a look at Wolf's growth rates, they are some of the highest in the game. 160% hit point growth. Like, I think Wolf and Sedgar are one of the few characters in this game that has more than 100% in any given stat. 80% strength, 95% skill, 85% speed. Really fucking good. 85% defense. That's absolutely insane.
You're reading Sedgar's growth, by the way.
Oh, shit. Oh, sorry. 160%. 100% strength growth, 85% skill growth, 85% speed growth. Like, this guy is absolutely crazy. Now, however, high growth rates isn't like what makes Wolf a good unit. What makes Wolf a good unit is because he can reclass, and because he's a tier 2 unit, that means he can reclass into another tier 2 unit. So I think how you do it is you reclass Wolf into a general and Sedgar into a hero. Is that how you do it?
Not quite. I'll explain later.
Right. Anyway, Wolf is really, really fucking good. Like in a LTC rushed playthrough, he might not shine that much, but in a slower style playthrough like this one, Wolf and Sedgar are both going to be put to really good use. I rate Wolf a 4 out of 5. He's really strong. If you stick around, he's going to grow pretty well. And again, the reclassing just gives him so much utility. So what do you have to say about Wolf?
I think we can put Wolf and Sedgar into one rating, basically. I think they're both, like, it really depends on how you play, like I said, and like I explained to you very immaculately last time. He's like, if you play slowly, then you can get their level ups and you can get out of their horrible bases. Because let's face it, their bases are actually really, really bad. They're basically class bases, just like the other generic Cavaliers that we got. So they don't really go anywhere. And even if you reclass them into the other classes, their bases tend not to be that great, except for when you reclass them to General. Then their defense gets such a use boost that they actually become usable. One strategy I like to do, and I did in my first Hard 5 playthrough, I think, was in a later chapter, you get one of Wolf or Sedgar into a general and then put them onto a fort and let them tank a bunch of enemies. And they'll get chip EXP, not much, but like they face like 5 enemies per turn, so they get half a level per turn or something. Because chip EXP is pretty good in this game. And then once they start leveling up, they gain more and more defense and strength, and then at some point they start steamrolling and taking 0 damage. And taking 0 damage in Hard 5 is really impressive because the enemies are so strong. And they can really nicely hold a choke point, lure enemies, that kind of stuff. It's really useful. But only once they've grown a couple levels do they really become viable. And then after a while, they become so strong, they've done so many level ups that you can reclass them to hero, and then they double things.
Right.
Another unfortunate thing about Wolf and Sedgar is their weapon levels. As generals, they can use bows and lances, but then when you reclass them to something like hero, they use swords and axes, so they basically reset. They have to build up weapon ranks all over again, and weapon ranks are really important in this game.
Right.
But thankfully, thanks to their great growth, they can make do with iron weapons a lot of the time, provided they are raised. If you're playing fast, I would say Sedgar and Wolf are like 1 out of 5, 2 out of 5 maybe, because the promoted classes can be kind of useful, but if you're playing slowly like Mangs, then you get like 3 to 4 star units. So I'll say 4 stars for this kind of playthrough because they're both that good if you play slowly.
All right, and since since we want to show off all the characters, everything Mecha said and everything we said about Wolf really applies to Sedgar as well. They're practically the same unit, but if you want to differentiate Wolf and Sedgar a little bit, their differences, as I said, they're really small. Sedgar has more skill, but less strength in terms of growths. And aside from that, Sedgar also has more defense than Wolf.
Yeah, the defense is really significant, if you don't mind me interrupting. I think if you reclass them to general, I think Sedgar gets over 100, whereas Wolf doesn't quite hit it. I'm not quite sure. I don't remember class growths, but that does help make it more reliable to raise them, because you can imagine if you miss a defense level up and you're being attacked by like 5 Cavaliers at once, that might become an issue.
Right.
But depends on the context, of course.
Yeah, aside from those little differences, they're pretty much the same unit, so I also rate Sedgar 4 out of 5 star, and I guess so do you.
Yep.
All right. Anyway, there's another unit, but we'll talk about him when we get there. So, how... All right, let's talk about Wendell. I love this guy. I love this guy. So, I already know what Mecha's gonna rate him because he spoiled it.
I know. I spoiled it.
Anyway, so Wendell. Wendell is great. Absolutely amazing. He's a pre-promoted sage, as you might can see. This game is really generous with his pre-promotes. Like, hey, have a pre-promoted sage by turn 5. Had to wait for like chapter 26 in Fire Emblem 7 for that. With Pant. Wendell has really good bases. 12 speed is amazing. On Hard 5, it means that he won't get doubled. Again, it's really difficult to double in Hard 5, but Wendell is one of the few characters who can actually double someone, like Armor Knights and certain slow units. He, of course, combines staff utility with tomes. He comes with B rank in tomes, so you can use a lot of the tomes. And he has D rank in saves, which is pretty good. He's only 1 rank away from using the warp staff. I think the warp is C?
Yes.
Yeah. His growth rates are, actually not bad by Shadow Dragon standards. They're a little on the low side, but, they're not bad at all for pre-promoted units. And Wendell's just one of those units that I find myself fielding in almost every single map, because it's just so nice to have a healer that can fight. He basically kind of obsoletes Wrys in a way, because, like, why field Wrys when you can field Wendell? It doesn't, like, unless you want all of them, of course, for, like, warp strats. But I just love Wendell. He's great. I rate him 4 out of 5 stars. Borderline 5 stars. But he's a really, really solid unit altogether. You can't really go wrong with pre-promoted sages, I feel, in most cases in Fire Emblem, because combining staffs and tomes is just so good.
Definitely. The reason I rate Wendell 5 stars is because well, I think we rated Lena 5 stars, and really all she has going for her is warp, which is really, really good, don't get me wrong, but it's just warp. And Wendell can warp pretty quickly. He can reclass to Bishop, which increases his staff rank actually to the point where I think he only needs like 10 barriers and a couple heals or something to get to C. And then you have 2 warpers, which is really good. So on top of that, his speed base is really high. Like, I looked it up, and his personal base speed is 8, and there's only 2 characters in the game that have a higher base speed, and they joined in the last chapter of the game. So it's kind of like Dagdar's HP, where it's like so much better than almost every other character in the game, and the ones that are better join so much later.
Right.
Like, personal bases in this game are pretty shit, and he just has 8 base, which makes him really fast, not just as a Sage, but as a Draco Knight, a Paladin, Swordmaster, if you want to go that route, gives him like 20 speed or something. It's really stupid. His growths are kind of terrible, but it doesn't matter, because his speed base alone carries him pretty far, and even if, when it doesn't, the staff rank does.
Yeah.
So, like, a unit that can both warp and do really good combat is just really nice. I think the best combat thing about him, besides his speed, is that the fact that he can use Excalibur at base, not as a bishop, that actually reduces his tome rank, but as a Sage he can use Excalibur at base and one KO flyers, just like Merric, so...
Right. Yeah, you can even trade it around, can't you, if you to do something?
Yeah, you can trade it around. It's a B-level tome, it's not a personal tome. It's just that Merric can use it at E, because Merric is gifted or something.
Yeah.
So... that's really nice. And I mean, whenever Wendell is reclassed, you can just give Excalibur to Merric. Like, there's nothing wrong with reclassing Wendell, even though he's a magic class. Sometimes you just gotta have another flyer or random paladin for some kind of reason that just needs to be really fast. So even though his strength is garbage, sometimes he's useful as a Draco Knight or a Swordmaster or Sniper, whatever you want. So, because he's so flexible, he can do so many things, I'll give him 5 stars.
I've heard that you can actually, as a Swordmaster, if you can give him 11 sword, he's pretty fucking good.
Yeah, too bad Swordmaster has like a C sword rank or something, so I'm not sure if it can use 11 sword of base.
Right,
so,
right. But it sounds like a fun idea.
You're not from Texas.
That's how I always imagined he spoke. Anyway, so here's Rickard. Rickard's the second, and I think you only get 2 thieves in this game. Yeah, it's the second thief you get, and there's not really much to say about him. He's basically just inferior Julian. He has weaker bases and weaker growths. He's pretty much just here in case you lost Julian, or by some miracle you want to field 2 thieves to get a lot of doors and treasure chests, I guess. Again, he's never really gonna see combat, especially not in hard 5, so his growths don't really matter. Just keep him out of combat and open chests. I don't think you got anything else to add, do you?
I would trash talk Rickard, but that didn't really work out for me when I did it about Julian, so I'm just gonna shut my mouth. Right. Anyway, I rate him 2 out of 5 stars. 5 stars, please help.
Alright. Great, best rating. Alright, so yeah, here is, you can't actually see it, I think. Just
wait. Oh yeah, you can't see it in this game, Jesus Christ, it's so annoying.
Yeah, but okay. I kind of remember them. Anyway, Bantu. So, Bantu, the first man kit you get, his bases are really low and so are his growths, but he does get some ridiculously high bonuses from the Dragonstone. I do believe it's like 9 defense at least and 3 resistance.
Yes.
And
4. And an 8 strength, 4 skill, and 4 speed.
Yeah, so I'm gonna show his total stats on the sheet with like the Dragonstone equipped. They're actually pretty good. His base defense, like with the stone equipped, is like 13, which is now it's 12. I mean, 12. So he's kind of like an armor knight, and his Dragonstone is 15 might and 85% hit. It's also like immune to the weapon triangle, which I think is a bad thing because you kind of like the weapon triangle in this game. But yeah, Bantu. I'd say that on higher difficulties, his star rating would be a lot higher because he can tank and he's pretty durable. But on hard 5, his survivability is to the point where he gets doubled and probably one-rounded by a lot of units. So I'd rate him like 2 out of 5 stars on hard 5. But if this was a lower difficulty playthrough, I'd probably rate him a little bit higher, maybe even 3 star, because as I said, you can use him to tank. 15 might on a weapon is pretty good. You get multiple of them, so it's not like you need to conserve them. You do get Tiki later on, which is a much better mana kit. But yeah, I rate him 2 out of 5. It's not really, he's not really see a lot of use, I'd say.
Yeah, fair enough. I actually think he's worse on hard 5 than on normal difficulties. I think you flip-flop between whether he's better or worse on whatever difficulty.
Yeah.
But on hard 5, like if you look at one of the Cavaliers, I don't know, the Steel Lancer one or whatever, can you mouse them over real quick? I want to check something. Not our Cavaliers, the enemies. Enemies,
Right, yeah. 10
like,
speed.
See, that guy has like 20 attack and 10 attack speed, so he doubles Bantu, I believe, right?
Yeah.
So he doubles Bantu, and then he does like 8 damage times 2 or something. It's really annoying.
Yeah.
So actually that guy doesn't double him, but I think at some point he does get doubled and kind of murked, so that makes his tanking pretty nihil. He also doesn't have 1-2 range, unlike some Manicheats in series,
yeah,
which is pretty annoying. And you can't forge his Dragonstone either, so that's a problem. He's not effective on dragons or anything, so the weapon is like, it's okay. It's kind of strong, but it never doubles, of course. I think Bantu is overall like a 1-star unit. It doesn't do much. I think the best thing he does ever in playthrough is recruit Tiki.
Yep.
Everything else is like, whatever, kind of worthless.
He's really good in Fire Emblem 1 and 3, though.
Yeah, transformation bonuses work differently, and they're making better there. He's also, in FE3, he's effective against Ice Dragons, which is pretty cool.
Oh, yeah.
I think they're also effective against him, but he gets 2-hit KO'd and he 1-hit KOs them. That's pretty cool. But in this game, he... shit unit.
Yeah, he's pretty bad. Alright, so, yeah, this is what we're gonna... So, if we had 15 units or less at the end of Chapter 6, we would have gone to Chapter 6X or 7X, I can't remember.
6X, yeah.
Yeah, and in that chapter, we would have gotten the sword, or not the sword master, the Myrmidon, Athena. So people want us to talk about the characters, and so we shall. We will talk about the tutorial characters eventually. We'll talk about like Frey next part and Norne after that. But first, let's talk about Athena. If we would have gotten Athena, would she have been a viable unit? Well, I know that I rated Navarre 3 out of 5 stars, which was in hindsight a little bit too high. Athena is basically, I'd say she's better than Navarre because she starts at a level 10. So she's ready to promote to a Swordmaster off the bat if you want an early game Swordmaster. So she does have some utility in that regard. In terms of her unit, she's just like a faster version of Navarre with less strength. So in other words, she's not very good. I rate her 2 out of 5 stars. I won't, like, this rating is not impacted by the fact that you have to kill units to get her. I will not give guide characters that minus. I'll just rate them in the vacuum, like, on their own merits. I will not say, like, oh, she's bad because you have to kill units to get her. I will just rate them on their own. But I still think Athena is a 2 out of 5 unit because she's just a Myrmidon. Although she is ready to promote, so that prevents her from being a 1-star unit. But I don't think Myrmidons are good in this game. Swordmasters don't get the crit bonus in this game, do they?
They might get a very tiny one. I think it's like a very tiny amount for Swordmasters, and then snipers also get like 5% of something. It's really weird.
Alright.
I can check real quick.
Now, I don't know if, like, I must admit, I haven't tried, like, out the reclassing avenue with Athena, if she has any good reclassing options. I haven't really gone there, but, I mean, maybe you can elaborate more. Do you have any... Okay,
yeah, actually, I was bored while waiting, so I tried to see what Athena could do if you were to, like, early promote her. Like I said, she comes at level 10, so she can promote right away, but the problem is you don't actually have a Master Seal yet, and you don't get that many in the game. And the first ones you get, you probably don't want to give to Athena. You want to give them to, like, Caeda or one of your Cavaliers. But if you do promote Athena at base level, she can go to either Swordmaster, as you said, get, like, 15 speed, which I think is enough to double, like, archers and stuff, but maybe not some faster enemies. She has, like, 11 strength that way, which is, like, decent. And she has Sea Sword, so she can use, like, Killing Edges. Not the worst unit ever, but you would expect better from someone you're giving your first Master Seal for. And then you can also go Sniper. Sniper's really good in this game because it has a base C rank in bows. It has 7 movement. Swordmaster has 8 movement, by the way, which is good.
Oh.
But movement stats are really high in this game.
Right.
So Swordmaster 8 move, Sniper 7 move, and C bows. And as I said, I think both get a crit bonus. Swordmaster being a really bit bigger than the Snipers, but not big enough to be reliable or anything. There's no S rank bonus, there's no support bonus, there's no whatever I'm forgetting bonus, so it's hard to make reliable crit rate in this game. Either way, Sniper is like 13 strength, 11 speed at base. Obviously it gets a little higher if she grows up, but her growths aren't that good. It's like 50% speed is decent, but 25% strength is garbage. So I would say 2 out of 5 is probably fair for Athena.
Right. Okay, so we've talked about Athena.
Hello. Right to their place.
They're like, right to the convoy. Alright, let's talk about these two useless guys for a moment. Here's Caesar. Caesar is... I mean, in many ways, he's kind of like the S-Dogma, I guess you could say. He's like...
Why is everything that has low bases an S and everything that has low growth is Jagen with you? You don't always have to think in archetypes, man. Just say low growth, or high growth, or high bases, or high growth.
He has pretty good growth rates. They're better than Ogma, but his base level is also... base stats and base level is also weaker than Ogma. I think Ogma might also start at a level 3, but he joins many chapters later. So, yeah, if you're a growth player and you like training up units and you like high endgame stats...
Don't train this one, because he's bad.
Yeah.
Don't do this one.
Don't train Caesar. 1 out of 5 stars. Seriously.
Why is he not in your notes?
He is.
I see Radd.
Oh, I called him Sedgar.
Dumbass.
I wrote it. Caesar. There we go. I just called him Sedgar in my notes for whatever reason. I don't know why. Because these are definitely not Sedgar's growths. But yeah, I mean, as I said, his growth rates are higher than Ogma, so I think in the endgame he might end up with like a couple more points in some stats, but it's definitely not worth it. He also comes with D rank and swords, which is really, really crappy. There's very little use for this guy, unless you're playing on like the easiest difficulty where enemies are weak anyway. You can like train him up if you don't like Ogma for whatever reason, but like on an easy mode playthrough, Ogma's just better in every way anyway. So I don't know. Do you have anything to say about this guy?
Steel sword is a pretty good weapon, 5 on 5.
Right. Is that the rating we're gonna leave him?
1 out of 5. That unit.
Okay. Then we have Radd. There we go. Radd. There we go. Radd is
the same unit.
The Iron Sword is really good.
Different classes. Different reclass options.
Well, he's a Myrmidon in this game. If he was a mercenary in the previous ones. Yeah. No. Everything that I said about Caesar pretty much applies to Radd as well. He's Navarre, but lower bases, later join time. Again, he does have higher growth rates than Navarre, but so if you're like a guy that likes racing units, I guess he could become good. But I think he's absolutely trash. D rank in swords, low bases, level 1, late join time, 1 out of 5 stars. There's no use for this guy. Why would you train him?
Those aren't even good. It's like 40% strength and 45% speed. That's whatever.
That's the thing, right? His growths aren't really that good either. I mean, I
guess by this game's standards, they're like okay.
They're slightly above Navarre's, like 5% here, 10% there, but like
Navarre isn't even good.
Navarre's pretty shit. So.
Ogma isn't either, by the way.
Yeah, but yeah.
At this point.
I mean, they contribute a steel sword and iron sword, which is nice. Aside from that, they're pretty much just gonna be hanging out here all game and just take a stroll in this. I don't even. Oh shit! Nah, let's not do that.
This seems not dangerous at all.
All right, so
use the rope. You gave it to her.
Roger. Second armor.
Roger.
Second armor.
Roger.
Second armor. Now you got.
Who?
What's the point of this unit?
Roger.
80% luck growth. That's a selling point. He's got a lot of luck.
Yeah.
He's very lucky.
When you say grow luck, he's like Roger.
Roger. We're never gonna talk about this unit, are we?
Roger.
Roger. 1 out of 5 stars, Roger.
Yes.
You agree?
Roger.
What's the point of this unit? He's like Draug but bad.
Caesar.
He still wants.
I mean, real talk. We're like when this game was just come out and we were talking tier lists and shit. People were trying to find good builds for this guy and reclassing him to fighter and hunter and all kinds of shit. I mean, I think just like Draug, if you reclass him to another class, his speed becomes pretty good. His base, because there's 5 base speed as an armor knight, and the armor knight class has very bad bases.
Right.
Yeah, it literally has a 0 speed base, so Roger actually has a personal base speed of 5.
Oh, okay. So you could like turn him into a dark mage or something. I'm guessing
you could always turn someone into a dark mage. It's a fail-safe option.
Right. Roger. Yeah.
It's your Forge of Atonement. That's
We're going to talk about a lance unit, because we're going to be reviewing one of the tutorial units, because you guys wanted to hear our opinions on those. So today we're going to be talking about the Cavalier Frey. The Frey is only available to you if you play the tutorial, which is why he's not here. I think he was placed into the game because in the tutorial you have to like sacrifice a unit, and Frey was put in there so that you could sacrifice him, but everyone just sacrificed Gordin instead.
I've seen people sacrifice Jagen. It always makes me mad.
Oh man, that's so bad. But Frey is actually really good. He starts out at level 1, and his weapon ranks aren't really that impressive. But in terms of growth rates, he's very similar to Hardin, except that he actually got good hit points. 55% skill and 55% speed is really good, especially considering you get a few chapters to train him in the tutorial, so he will usually be higher level than Cain and Abel at the first chapter. So I like Frey a lot. I rate him 4 out of 5 stars. He's just like a really good cavalier, and on definitely on par with Hardin, Cain, and Abel. There's nothing much else to say about him, at least not for me.
Yeah, I think he's better than Cain in normal mode, just because he can chuck javelins.
Yeah.
He has the same weapon range as Abel, and I believe his growth rates are like the best of both worlds, so that's pretty good. Normal mode, you're like the stat benchmarks for doubling and killing aren't very high, and I think Frey joins along with either Abel or Cain first, the other one joins like one map later, so he's definitely better than the one that joins one map later. I think that's Cain too.
All right.
So yeah, 4 out of 5 is fine for him, I think. I mean, normal mode is whatever, you can use whatever you want, but Frey is a good choice.
Yeah. We'll talk about the other unit in the next chapter. Okay.
Are you done?
Yes. However, we're not done talking about Jeorge. He's great. I love Jeorge. Jeorge, one of my favorite snipers in not only in this game but in Fire Emblem as a whole. If I said he was a favorite sniper in this game, then I think that would be kind of stupid because I think he's the only sniper in this game.
I like to promote Gordin.
This is true. So Jeorge, he's absolutely fantastic. You know, snipers kind of just fix everything that's wrong with archers because they just got good bases, which is what you want.
Wait, snipers have one range?
No, well, you know what I was, you know what I meant.
I got thrown off you by that comment.
So Jeorge have what Gordin wants, good bases. He has 12 speed, which he's not fast enough to double on hard 5, but that's not really why he's good. I'm actually gonna make a confession, or I'm gonna make a redactment of my rating. I will actually rate Gordin like 2 stars because bows are really good in Shadow Dragon because you need reliable chip damage, and hand axes and javelins are not very reliable chip damage. Jeorge comes with a silver bow, which can do a lot of damage at base. He's super reliable. He doesn't even do chip damage. He actually does decent damage, and you can really rely on him. He is, I think, like just a little bit away from A rank in bows, which allows him to use the Parsha, which you get very soon. With the Parsha, Jeorge becomes absolutely crazy. He can do so much damage with it. His growth rates aren't even bad. I mean, he has a 40% speed growth and a 50% skill growth. So his skill and speed will grow naturally. But you don't really need him to grow anyway, because his stats are just really good at base. Like his stats will carry you to the end game. In my in my playthrough of Fire Emblem 12, or Fire Emblem, what was the
New Mystery?
New Mystery, yeah, that's it. I don't think I would have gotten through that game without Jeorge. I just love this guy. I will actually rate him 5 out of 5 stars. Because, yep, I'll rate him 5 out of 5 stars. Because it's so nice to have reliable range damage in Shadow Dragon. Units are not going to solo enemies on their own on the enemy phase. I think I would rate him lower in like a lower difficulty playthrough. Because then you got like Cain and Abel and Ogma who can just like solo entire squads alone on enemy phase.
Wow, the bullshit just keeps on coming.
It's true. Depends
on what difficulty, I guess.
But on hard 5, you actually really need reliable range damage, which is why I rate Jeorge 5 out of 5 stars. What do you have to say about him?
You make it sound like his statistical as like Har or Titania or whatever. I mean, 7. Don't get me wrong, his bases are good for Shadow Dragon standards. Like 7 strength and 12 speed is workable, especially with the good weapon rank and the bonuses it gives him and the Parthia. But let's make it clear, he doesn't double. Okay, he doesn't double reliably at all.
Nobody does in Hard 5 though.
No, but that's my point. I mean, he's not that good at combat to the point where he doubles. So he's still just providing chip damage and like 2-hit going or 3-hit going enemies, which is decent. But I don't think it's worth 5 stars. I think it's like 3 to 4 stars probably. I mean,
3 or 4.
Good 3 or 4. I think I'll give him like 3 just to make you mad. But
get out.
Like, sure, it's nice, but he's not a Draco Knight. Okay, he's not that good.
I think you're wrong. I think Jeorge gonna be the MVP of this playthrough. Absolutely, he coughs because he knows he's wrong.
No, I cough because your rating makes me speak.
Look at how good he
I'm
is.
degenerating due to how bad your rating
Look
was.
at
like,
how good he is.
He's not one rounding a thief.
It's hard
This
5!
guy, he's not killing an enemy. How good is that? But,
By the way, I completely forgot about something, Mecca. I'm not sure if you can see my notes, but we have to talk about the last tutorial character.
yeah, I thought we might.
Yeah, so let's talk about Norne. She's the last... let's just talk about her, okay? So Norne is an archer you get if you play the tutorial. Judging by her design, you might think that, oh, she's like a weaker but faster version of Gordin, but in fact, she's actually stronger than Gordin. Offensively, she's just better than Gordin, but the difference between her and Gordin is that Gordin has more luck and defense. So Gordon's like quote-unquote the defensive archer. But really, between the two of them, they're essentially the same unit. Like, Norne will have a few more points of speed compared to Gordin in the end game, but it really doesn't matter. Like, people just like her because she's cute. But since I rated Gordin, I've retroactively bumped Gordin up to 2 stars because I find bows to be very useful on Heart 5. I will rate Norne the same, like 2 out of 5 stars. She's just marginally better than Gordin, but not anywhere close enough to actually get an extra star. I would never rate archers anything above a 2 out of 5 after all, except if you're Jeorge.
Jeorge is a sniper.
Exactly.
Snipers are just so different. But
Alright.
the thing with Norne is that she's not in hard 5, she's only normal mode.
Exactly.
So there's like, she's completely pointless because archers, they might be good in hard 5, sure, they might be better than hard 5, but they're bad in normal mode. So I'd actually give Norne just a 1 star. She's completely pointless, you don't need an archer in normal mode for anything. And if you reclass her, her weapon levels reset to like E rank in Cavalier. Like, you'd have to imagine a Cavalier with E rank is swords and lances, that would be Norne, that's so bad. So I think she's completely pointless.
Right. Yep. That seems to be that. Yep. And 1 star, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it here first. Mecha hates redheads confirmed. All right. So, bench me, please. Okay. Maria.
Let's talk.
Let's talk. We have a lot to say about this unit, don't we, Mecha? We have a lot.
I have more to say about her than about Norne, I guess.
You do? Oh, okay. Okay, I guess I'll say what I need, because I don't have a lot to say about her at all. I mean, okay, so in comes this cleric that has roughly the same growths and bases as Lena, but without the ability to use the Hammer or Warp at base. Can't even use the Hammer because it's exclusive to Lena. I don't really know what the point of this unit is. I mean, I guess if you need another staff user, you can bring her for some extra healing, but I struggle to see the point of this unit, really. I've given her 2 out of 5 because she's essentially just Wrys that joins later. I mean, she has the same staff rank as Wrys and about the same base magic, so why is she any different than Wrys? I mean, yeah, sure, I guess she has growth rates. If you like growth rates, you can train her to a Sage, but even then, I mean, her growth rates aren't even that good either. I mean, they're like in the 20s for most of her stats, except for luck. And she has I think she's even more squishy than Lena. No, she's about the same, 15% hit points, which is just really bad. But yeah, I mean, 2 out of 5. If she had a higher staff rank, I'd probably rate her higher, but yeah. Again, I don't see the point of this unit. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to hearing what you have to say about her, though.
I mean, don't get me wrong, she's really bad. I give her 2 stars as well.
Oh.
But if you still want another Warper, Maria is your best bet for it because she has D, staves, and then a little bit, so it's actually fairly easy to get her to C and get her to Warp if you want her to. And I think Warp is pretty good. So
really?
For that reason, I think she's worth more than 1 star. Yeah, I think Warp is pretty good. Yeah.
Really? I wasn't aware. I wasn't aware of this.
I know. I mean, I don't remember how many staff uses it takes to get from Maria's base. I know she has 10 weapon XP in D, but I don't know how many it takes to get to C. But it's at least it's less than what your wrist needs at this point. So
that is true. That is true. But yeah, still 2 out of 5, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Because you don't really need a 4th warp or whatever. Like you have Lena and Wendell already.
Yeah, it's a bit.
Jagen can also get to warp if you want him to, which is pretty funny.
It's a bit overkill, ain't it? I don't know. Anyway, enter Minerva. So I think if it weren't for units such as like Caeda and Jagen and stuff, I think Minerva could probably compete with being one of the best units in the game.
Yeah, she's probably the best unit in FE3.
Oh yeah, probably.
Or arguably.
So she has bases at least better than Jagen's at this point. Her growth rates are good, and she's a flyer. She has basically her own personal weapon. I mean, sure, it's not a personal weapon, it's an A-rank weapon, just like the Excalibur, but it might as well be hers, because I think actually Barst can use it at this point, but it's not normal to have a Barst with A-rank at this point during the game. Hood Clear is insane, has one of the highest mights in the game, and it's also very accurate. You can use it as a vulnerary, it's just a fun thing, but don't do that, seriously. Why would you ever do that? Like, yeah, I'm gonna use my Hood Clear to get 10 hit points back, yeah, good job. But you can do it, it's just a fun little thing that a lot of people don't know about. But I think Minerva is absolutely fantastic. Great basis, a flyer, good growth rates for a pre-promote. Personal weapon, does a shit ton of damage. You can give her the poleaxe when you get that to one-shot cavalry. 5 out of 5 star. I don't think anyone's going to get surprised by that rating. Minerva is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I love Minerva. I wasn't sure whether I was going to give her 4 stars or 5 stars because, I mean, I really think that while Minerva is really good, Jagen and Caeda are like a class above her and Lena as well.
Yeah.
Because they do so much more for the hardest part of the game, which is the early game. So that's kind of the only reason I want to penalize Minerva for that, though, because other than that, she's really fantastic. I think her only real drawback besides her availability is the fact that she has D lances instead of C.
Oh.
And that means she cannot use the Rider's Bane at base, and that's kind of annoying because that would be really useful on a Draco Knight to have.
Right.
And it in order for her to get to Rider's Bane, she either needs to get an arm scroll, which are very rare, although you do get one in Chapter 12. So that might be a good purpose for it, actually. But yeah, if you want to build up her lance rank, she'd have to attack with lances, and that's not really her specialty because you want to use like hammer and hot glare and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, but if you can spare her the arm scroll, I actually think she's definitely the best unit at this point, maybe. So yeah, I'll give her 4 stars because of the early game thing, but she's really good.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Okay. All right. So now it's pretty much, where did we put Caeda? But she
Good luck with that with Aura.
But she can't win against Gar now.
Oh, really? Wow, I never heard that before.
All right, Linda. Let's talk.
Send her into the arena next.
Oh shit!
You want to fight, mate? You want a broken nose?
I'm gonna release my fist into your Munchin mannequin. All right. So Linda, she is a mage, as you might be able to see, and
Wow.
yeah.
I learn something new every day on this channel.
I just had to talk some bullshit, but I scrolled up on my notes. So Linda, she's like many probably have the impression of Linda that she's like this fast glass cannon, but in Shadow Dragon she's actually pretty slow. Especially on hard 5, she'll never double anything. Well, of course, that puts her into the category of 98% of the rest of the cast, but still. Linda, of course, she...
That just means she's not Caeda.
She's basically not Caeda. But I'm talking, like, if you're playing on normal mode, like, Linda's actually not one of those fast units. Some people think she is. In Fire Emblem 12, she certainly is, but in Fire Emblem 11, she's actually kind of slow. Her growth rates are pretty good, though, and she comes at level 1, so she's like, if you're playing on lower difficulties and you like growth units, she's definitely going to be your type of gal. I do find Linda to have some use in hard 5, though, because she comes with the Aura Tome that hits incredibly hard with 18 might, so she hits harder than Merric with Excalibur, which is kind of good. Although, albeit with less crit rate and not effective against flyers, but I still think that the Aura Tome itself is very valuable because it has 90% accuracy, and just the ability to deal 20 magic damage to a unit on hard 5 is very good. It's not like super good, but it certainly makes her a useful unit in my opinion. If she just came with a Fire Tome, she'd be really bad, but because she has that Aura Tome that nobody else really can use at this point for quite some time, unless like you level up Lena or Maria, that's not gonna happen either at this point. So I do give Linda a 3 out of 5 star rating, just because she can deliver some nice nukes from afar, even on hard 5, even without getting any levels. So I think Linda's a perfectly valuable unit. What do you have to say about her?
I'm kind of torn on whether she's like 2 or 3 stars. I think you meant to give her 3 stars, right?
Yeah, I said 3.
Oh, I missed it somehow. I must have watched Net Neutrality or something.
Yeah, Net Neutrality
Anyway,
took away your Discord.
Anyway,
So.
the way Aura works is only females can use it, but Linda's the only one who can use it with an E in tomes. She has a D at base, of course, but other females would need to get like a B in tomes, which is really hard to reach. So yeah, Aura is basically her personal weapon. Funnily enough, I had to look up how much Aura weighs, because I expected it to be really heavy,
1.
since it isn't like every other game, but it weighs 1.
Weighs
Yeah, so she
1.
only loses 1 speed. Unfortunately, her base speed is really bad, so Linda actually dies to a stiff breeze if any enemy touches her at all.
Yep.
Which is why I think I'm leaning towards 2-star, because it just cannot do enemy phase at all. So she's really just an aura bomb and nothing else. And to be honest, I think there's a lot of better characters out there. But I will say that like melee chip damage is sometimes appreciated, so we'll go with fuck it. We'll do 3 stars. Fine.
Aha! Mecha changed his
Fine.
mind. Mecha changed his mind. Anyway, into the arena you go. We'll talk about Jake first. Maybe you'll think about it. Anyway, here's Jake. Jake is the first ballistician you get. In Fire Emblem 3, they scrapped this class entirely. So really, it's like we haven't seen ballisticians at this point until like before Fire Emblem 1. Like, of course, we've seen them on the enemy side. Like, Fire Emblem 3 had enemy ballisticians, but they just decided that they didn't want to put them into player hands. But in Fire Emblem 11, they were like, fuck it, let's bring back the ballisticians. So Jake, his stats and growth rates for most purposes don't really matter. I mean, it's not that his stats or growth rates are bad. He has a lot of defense, but that really doesn't end up coming into play, since why do you want Jake to be attacked in the first place? He's a ballistician that can attack from 10 range. So I never got the whole, why does ballisticians need more defense? It's more of an enemy thing than the player thing, because they're harder to take down for the player. But having a high defense ballistician on your team is seldom very good. They can't really move on terrain. It's like their one weakness, but they do have a 3 to 10 range weapon, which is really good, and there's multiple of them. In particular, effective weapons like the arrow spade and the thunderbolt.
Thunderbolts.
And of course, what makes Jake so incredibly good is the fact that you can forge these weapons and then use Jake to like one-shot enemy ballisticians and enemy flyers from far away. This is just incredibly valuable. And even if you can't one-shot, I mean, just having a guy that can do 17 damage from 10 range is really good. I mean, in the later Fire Emblem games, you can only do this via like siege tomes, which are very limited in their use, whereas in this game you get a ballistician which can seemingly do it all the time, because it's not like the arrow spade or the other weapons are extremely expensive or anything. I mean, you can get them from shops. So for that reason alone, I rate Jake 5 out of 5 stars, just because he's like a ranged artillery. It's really good to have in Fire Emblem. It's extremely valuable to have in Fire Emblem. So yeah, that's all I have to say about Jake.
Yeah, ballistician is a really broken class, and I can understand why they took it away from you in FE3 Book 2 and in FE12,
Yep.
and why they reclassed Jake to, what was it, Horseman or something?
It was something. I don't remember.
It was really
I think it was a warrior in Mini Mystery.
Yeah, I think it's an axe using class too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, free chip damage basically from a long distance, and you can forge it. That's like... It's like, sometimes it's like you have a wing spear of sorts that you can use from far away.
Yeah.
It's really hard to explain, but it's so stupid.
It's a
and it's
310
so
range
broken.
wing spare.
At that point, it doesn't really matter that you have 4 move or that your stats suck, or like, look at his speed and strength. How can a unit that's 5 stars have 5 strength and 3 speed at this point in the game? That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's just how good Jake is. So I would say 5 out of 5 as well. Same for the other ballistician. They're just so good.
Yeah.
And they can even kill bosses, which is really stupid.
Yeah, they can. It's really funny because, you know, again, it's not Jake that's good. It's the weapon type and the class that he has.
He also has some supports that make him a little bit more accurate.
Yeah, he likes all the girls. He has like he gets supported by all the ladies. Like all the pretty girls he gets supported by.
Yeah, if there's one bad thing about the ballisticians is that their skill stats suck, and the ballistas don't have very much hit, especially the stone hoist, but the others have some hit problems too. So
yeah, don't you?
If you want them to hit, you gotta have some good forges.
Take this, elephant. So let's talk about the Suck Squad. We're not gonna spend much time on these guys because they're all really bad, but let's talk about the 2
You're
units.
also not gonna spend much time on the map, apparently.
Nah. So here's Media. Media is, aside from being, I really like her design, just gotta point out, one of my favorite female paladin designs in Fire Emblem, actually. I love her cipher art. I think Media is like really cool design character. She's like female done right. I love it. And I think that Media herself, though, she's not really that impressive. She has around the same base stats as Jagen, only that she comes like 11 chapters later, and her weapon ranks are also pretty shit. C lances, D swords. Like, and to make up for this, the developers were like, let's give her the growth rates of like a non-promoted unit, and she does have that. Like, her growth rates are good, but that just doesn't really end up being very useful on a level 1 paladin. So while you do need her to recruit a hero that joins later, I don't find Media all that impressive. She reminds me a little bit of Isadora. I know you're gonna get angry now because you love Isadora, but like, she's just a paladin that just is not very impressive. So I rate her 2 out of 5 stars.
Yeah, she's much worse than Isadora. I wouldn't say her growths are good. Like, she has a 50% speed growth, and the importance about ends there, like 30% strength, 20% defense. That's bad. And her weapon ranks, I mean, they could have been a lot worse.
Yeah.
D swords gives her armor slayer, I think, and C lances gives her the rider's bane. So she could theoretically do something with that.
That's true.
And that's why she's better than like a 1-star. But that's kind of about it, because there's kind of no reason to use her. Like, if she came a lot earlier, then at least you could say I can get promoted utility out of a unit without you having to use the Master Seal. But at this point, we get so many units that have better stats, better ranks, and don't need the Master Seal that she's just kind of pointless. So 2 stars.
Yeah, I think that, let's say that Media was the Jagen of this game, that she joined in place of Jagen. Do you think she would have been a 5-star unit?
I mean, maybe not 5 because she cannot use the Silver Lance.
Exactly, yeah, that's what I'm
3 or
thinking
4,
too.
maybe.
Yeah. Alright, anyway, yeah, that's media. And the other guy who's worth something, it's Boa. So, Boa, what can we say about Boa? He's basically like Wendell Light.
Funny name.
He has a funny name and a very funny portrait, too. I don't know. I think he looks so out of place.
Yeah, I think his old portrait was the exact same one as Wendell.
Yeah, it was Wendell with like mirrored 180 degrees, so he like looked the other way, I think. The first Fire Emblem game did this a lot, by the way. They just took a portrait and they just mirrored it. I think it's how they save space on the cartridge. That's really funny. But yeah, Boa, he's basically Wendell, but with worse bases and worse quotes. Of course, he comes with the same weapon ranks as Wendell. C rank staves. Actually, yeah, no, Wendell comes with D, doesn't he?
Yeah, Wendell needs a bit of rank and then reclass the bishop, because Wendell is a sage while Boa is a bishop.
Yeah, so Boa can actually warp from the get-go, which automatically makes him pretty good. And B rank in tomes is also nice. You can use Excalibur if you need him to. If you don't, like, I only have 1 use left of that tome, but if you're not me, then you might find some use for Boa. So I rate Boa 3 out of 5 stars, because he's essentially Wendell, just a little bit worse, but he does the same things that Wendell does. He's just not as fast as Wendell, so he doesn't double as often, but still, he's a 3-star unit.
Yeah. Free warp is really nice. Just keep him off the drugs, and he'll be pretty good.
Yeah, don't give him spirit dust.
Yeah,
he has some,
he has some
problems with that.
Yeah, he needs some energy drops up his nose. But you know, the funny thing about Boa is if you're doing like an actual speedrun, not LTC, but actually trying to complete in the least possible amount of time, you want to use Boa to warp instead of Lena because he gets less EXP, so it level.
Mecha, you said that you need him to warp because, and then you cut off. Can you repeat that?
Oh. Yeah, okay, so you want him to warp instead of Lena because he gains less EXP per warp. So he levels up less often, that wastes less time.
Ah, that's interesting. I got what you said on tape, so you don't need to repeat it, but I think I missed out on your star ranking.
3 stars.
3 stars. Alright, cool. Alright, then we have units that we're just gonna brush over really quickly. So yeah, Thomas, what's the point of this unit? He's like joins after Jeorge. I think I actually, you know, went and did a little research on him because I was like, is there any use for this guy? And the only thing I found was that in the endgame, if you train him up to a sniper, he does actually have higher stats than Jeorge and Gordin on average. So if you like training units, then Thomas is your go-to guy. But there's really no point. He gets like, I don't know, a couple extra points of strength and speed. He has like a pretty decent 50% speed growth. But aside from that, there's really nothing to say about this guy. I mean, an archer that joins after a sniper. Has that ever happened before in a Fire Emblem game?
I mean, I could think of a mage that joined after a sage, but
yeah,
archer after a sniper? Not really.
So yeah, one star.
Yeah, I think the reason Thomas and units like him exist is because this game was originally designed with permadeath in mind, so that if you had like Gordin died, then you would still have an archer or something, but it's almost like either way, Thomas is just so bad. 7 strength and 5 speed is so awful. I think his only redeeming quality is that like you can do the Athena thing with him where you promote him almost instantly, just give him 2 levels, which is already going to be a pain in the ass. And then you sort of have an acceptable sniper, but
yeah, I'm gonna do some calculations post-production to see if you level him up to level 10 and then promote him, will he have higher stats than Jeorge? But even if that's still a master seal that you're gonna waste those, that's awful.
Yeah, 1 star for sure.
But I think it needs to be said though. The way Caeda intended you to play Fire Emblem, he's even said this in an interview. I don't think a lot of people are aware of this. Is that the first unit that joins are the best ones, and the reason why the later units are worse is because they're supposed to be replacement units. So your punishment for losing those units is that you get worse units, and the reward for not losing them is that you get to keep the good units. That's why people always think it's weird that the good units are the ones that join first in the Arcanea games. This is because you're supposed to try and keep them alive, and if you fail to do that, you can use Thomas instead of Gordin. And he's in the older games, he's just a worse version of Gordin. Here, they bumped him up a little bit in the growth rate department because they have a little bit of like newer way of thinking about Fire Emblem. But yeah, again, he sucks. Alright, time to talk about the Bolt Brothers. One night!
Why are you even using Wallace as an example? You could have used Dolph or Macallan all along.
So yeah, Dolph and Macallan, we're just gonna do them together because honestly, there's no point in rating them because they're basically the same unit. If you really want to know who's better, then Dolph is slightly better because he has 1 extra level and higher growth rates. Because Macallan's just worse. Yeah, and seen Rances. But they're basically both 1-star units. I mean, do I even have to specify why? I mean, they're they're armor knights, and they join at this point in the game, which is like halfway, and their growths and bases are worse than Draug, so why would you use them? I actually wanted to use them in my Fire Emblem 3 LP, because I just thought their portraits were absolutely fucking amazing. I think their old school portraits are some of the funniest portraits. They have like the tooth sticking out.
Oh yeah.
It's so good. I love their old school artwork, but yeah, now they even lost that. They don't even have their tooth anymore, so they don't look retarded. So there's no point in using them now. Yep.
Retards only. Sorry, guys.
Oh shit! What did I do? What the hell? All right.
But Dia's not crushing anything with a 7 strength from hers.
That's true. Well, not that Astrum's much better. So yeah, enter Astrum. Astrum's first pre-promoted hero you get. He's alright. I mean, his stats are like decent. Like if you're playing on a very low difficulty, his stats will pretty much carry him through the game. He'll double most things. His strength is a little bit iffy, but he does have a 50% strength growth to make up for it if you actually want to use him for the long term. His growth rates are actually pretty good for a pre-promoted unit, but a little bit higher than some of the other pre-promoted units you get. I think he's a perfectly serviceable unit. I think he's definitely better in the next game though. But I rate Astrum 3 out of 5 stars. There's not really that much to say about him. He's just an overall really decent hero. It's gonna be tricky to find a slot for him in Hard 5 though. But I think that even if you were forced to use him in Hard 5, you could probably make him do something. At least he can use the Worm Slayer, so that's something. So yeah, I don't really know what else to say about Astrum.
Yeah, he's in a pretty good class with good basis hero, which makes him fast enough not to get doubled and even double some enemies. And he has a B in swords, which is nice. I wish he had like a slightly better axe rank so he could use the hammer, but that's just all there is to it, I guess. The low strength kind of sucks for carrying axes, so even if you could use the hammer, you would get weighed down a ton, which for the hammer is like okay, but like for a halberd or a pole axe or whatever you want to call it, kind of sucks. The thing about characters in this game in general, it's not just Astrum, they have very low base HP, so Astrum is actually kind of frail. And later on Brave Weapons show up, and I think he can't really escape getting one rounded by those, so at that point you probably have to ditch Astrum, but before that he's okay, I guess. I don't think he's too great. Like at this point most casual players will have an army full of good units, and it will be hard to find a slot for him, as you said. So for those players I don't think Astrum is worth much, but if you haven't raised that many units, then Astrum is an okay filler, so 3 out of 5 seems fair.
Yeah, alright. So, right now, I think...
Other than that one guy who does use Thunderbolt and knows what it is.
Yeah, he probably will know what hit him. So yeah, enter Beck. He's basically the same unit as Drake. If you want to know the difference between them, then Beck has slightly more speed but less skill. He's also a little bit more tanky than Jake. He has a bit more hit points and defense, but it's so small it's not really noticeable. At the end of the day, though, it doesn't really matter. It's just he's good because of his weapons. So we rated Jake 5 stars. I think it's safe to rate Beck 5 stars as well. He does come with a Thunderbolt, which is really good, but you can just trade this over to Jake. There's some use in this. You can forge it to one-shot ballistas, which I think we might do, because there's some ballistas in the late game that are kind of nasty, so it's nice to be able to take them out. So yeah, you got anything to say about Beck?
Yeah, great artillery unit, 5 stars easily. Thunderbolt is nice because it doesn't cost too much to forge, so it's pretty easy to get it to take out ballisticians without spending a lot of money on it. I mean, that's not really something Jake gets all the credit for, or Beck gets all the credit for. They like share it, so I think that makes both of them a lot better. And they're already really good.
Yep, that's about it. There's not much to say really, because we already talked about Jake.
Yeah.
Let's start out by talking about Katria. So Katria, she's pretty good. I like her. Good speed. Her growth rates are really good. If you for some reason like don't want to use Caeda, if you're retarded, I guess. I mean, she's like she's like a
she's really good if you're retarded.
I mean, that sounds like something you would say.
Yes.
Katra's like, I mean, she's like Caeda, but without the wing spare and the early join time. She's pretty similar in all other
So
cards.
basically not like Caeda at all.
Not like Caeda at all. She's pretty low level, but I mean, she's a flyer, which is nice. She has C rank, which allows her to use like the Rider's Bane if you need her to. I see a lot of people reclassing her to Cavalier, I think. I don't remember if that was like a Fire Emblem 12.
Can't do that in this game,
I think that in Fire Emblem 12, I see a lot of people reclassing her to Cavalier.
Yeah, I do that too.
I was watching like Cheeky's playthrough of like Lunatic Rovers, and she uses like Katria Cavalier for some reason. I don't know why.
I don't like scrub players on my channel though, so let's not talk about him.
And this is not an incest channel either, so anyway.
Really?
So
but there's Fire Emblem. What are you talking about?
Fire Emblem. Alright, so but anyway, so Katria, she has good growth rates if you care about that kind of thing. She's like good in lower tier playthroughs, I guess. I still rate her like 4 out of 5 stars because she is a flyer with good utility. and you can make great work of her. Like there are ways to make her work. I think rating her like 3 stars is not fair because she can actually do a lot of things with the good weapon rank, good speed. She can actually double in hard 5, which is kind of nice. Give her a couple levels. I mean, 65% speed growth is really good. You get her up to 10, promote her to the Raker Knight. You got another Minerva essentially, which is pretty good. So yeah, she's all right. I like her. She's not fantastic, but she's all right.
Yeah, she's definitely a lot better for casual players because they have the time to just train her up. And because she has seed base, it's very easy to get her kills with forged weapons. So I really like that. In a way, if Caeda joined really early, she'd be a really good unit, which really shows in FE12.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think the one thing I dislike about Caeda as a low base level, it's only 5. So if you want to promote her quickly, you gotta really put in work. And Dondon had to do it in his 0% run. And Caeda was actually like his best unit stat-wise once she promoted, which was pretty funny considering she's a growth unit. But like she's good if you train her, and if you don't train her, she's not very good. That's really all it comes down to.
Yeah.
She's not that great at base level, but you can make her work if you want to. I'd only give her 3 out of 5 because she isn't available and she is underleveled, but she's pretty good when she's trained.
Alright, then let's move over to Pala. Everyone's like... People go so crazy over Pala for whatever reason. I think she's like the most popular wife in the community. I don't know why people love her so much. I mean, she's alright, I guess. As a unit...
It's FE12, dude. FE12, Pala has a god. And then there's Gaiden.
She actually is. She's really good in FE12. And Book 2 of Fire Emblem 3. So Pala, she's a lot better than Caeda, I'd say. She has a higher base lance rank at B. She comes 3 levels higher. Her bases are better. However, her growth rates are significantly lower, but we all know how Mecha feels about that. 25% speed is really low for Pegasus Knight, but she does have 13 base speed, so she comes capable of doubling a lot of enemies, even on hard 5, so it doesn't really hurt her all that much. She's also like, you think she might be in many of the other games she's in, she's actually really tanky, but here she's still at 25% just like Caeda. But she's a lot stronger as well, so she's got that going for her. But yeah, I also rate Pala the same, 4 out of 5 stars. Again, she's just a slightly better version of Caeda, and that's pretty much it. Like, you can give her 2 levels, and then you have another Raker Knight, which is pretty useful if you want to.
Yeah, one thing I forgot to mention is that Raker Knight promotion bonuses, if you look at Caeda, they're ridiculous. It's like, she gets insane strength and promoting, and some HP as well. But who cares? You just be faster and stronger. It fixes like all the issues that Pegasus Knights have generally, so that's why promotion is so important, and why it's so nice that Pala is base level 8 instead of 5. And Pala also has B lances instead of C, and for weapon ranks, like weapon usability doesn't really matter all that much. But combined with the higher strength that she has, because I think Caeda has like 6, right?
Yeah, she has
and
1 extra
Pala
strength.
7.
She's 1 less strength.
Yeah, and then the B lances also gives her +1 attacking power,
yeah, I
so
forget
she's a bit
about that.
stronger. So that's really nice, and it's closer to silver, I guess. I forgot how much weapon rank she gets upon promoting, but she's probably easier to get to Gravitas, and she can use Silver Lance at base, which is pretty good. So that's why I like Pala a bit more than Caeda in this game. I'm still torn between 3 and 4 stars because it's still kind of late. Whatever, we'll give her 4 stars.
All right.
She is a leg up from Caeda, for sure.
Definitely. All right. So, now comes the Pegasus grind. This is very true. All right. So, we're going to be talking about Horus. He joins in Chapter 12X. He is a pre-promoted general. And as far as, like, Horus goes, I think... As with most other characters on normal mode, he's pretty good. His base defense of 17 is really good. Like, if I prefer to rate them in terms of hard 5 because that's what we're playing. And I think in hard 5, Horus can do some tanking, at least in the early game. Like, he has 8 speed and 17 defense, which is pretty good even on hard 5. He can tank Cavaliers. Like, 8 speed is like that nice sweet spot where you still don't get doubled by some of the more nasty enemies. Like, Cavaliers usually have around 10 to 11 speed. So he is in that sweet spot where he just does not get doubled by some of the scarier units. He still gets absolutely torn apart by mages, but he can at the very least, like, you can put him in front of like a reinforcement block of like 6 Cavaliers and he can probably deal with all of them. He's like Sedgar before Sedgar really started to snowball out of control. However, of course, unlike Sedgar, he will never...
Unlike Snowball.
Unlike Snowball, he won't really improve that much. His growths are pretty shit, like 10, like I think 15% speed or something along those lines. At 10% speed. It's really bad, so... But I do give him 2 out of 5 stars, and the reason why I give him 2 out of 5 stars is because I feel like a general with 17 defense and 8 speed at Chapter 12 can actually be used in some viable ways. I don't think he's quite worthy of a 1-star unit, but he's not really a 3-star unit either. He can also... His bow rank is pretty shit, but he can use an iron bow to shoot down some flyers, and I don't remember his lance rank at the top of my head, but you guys can see it. It's not the best, but he's alright. B. Yes, that's pretty good, actually. He can use Silver Lance and do some nice damage. But yeah, that's all I have to say about Horus.
Yeah. I really wish that the general class, or that Horus, I mean for Horus' sake, that he wasn't in this class set where he can't use his lance rank and any other class that he reclasses to. And this is a unit that a lot of units face, like Dolph and McCallan and Roger and even Sedgar and Wolf have this problem where they just cannot use their good weapon ranks in other class. What is it, Horseman, and about it. So that really sucks for them.
Yeah.
But he can't use the Rider's Bane, and that's kind of nice. I think that have to tank forever like Sedgar often did. Like, I think I like Chapter 10 where Sedgar was tanking a lot. I don't think Horus could really do that. I think Cavaliers have like 20 to 25 attack in this game.
Yeah.
So Horus would need like constant healing support or vulnerary use to really do that. That would be pretty annoying. And Horus is not around for early game, right? This is like, he joins Chapter 13 basically.
Yeah.
So he doesn't really have a very good tank for a whole lot. And he joins at a point where you're actually going through the chapters quite a bit quickly. Like you said last chapter, you were like, wow, this game is actually pretty fun when you play it so fast. Well, Horus cannot play fast because his class just isn't very good at that.
Yeah.
So that's why I would say Horus, like 2-star unit at best.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, that's it. Let's go. I was running out of accents to be fair. All right. Here is Samson. So you can only get one of these guys. Obviously, I picked Samson, not because I'm going to use him, because he was closer. And getting to Aaron like takes one more turn, unless you give Barth, unless you give
LTC strats.
Unless you give Marth the boots. And yeah, we're very concerned about turn counts in this LP. So what can we say about Samson? In Fire Emblem 3, he looked like Sigurd. I kind of thought that was funny. He's an
I still think it kind of looks like Sigurd.
Yeah, but in Fire Emblem 3, like if you show their portraits side by side, it's crazy how much they look like each other. It's like
Fat Sigurd.
It's like when they designed when they designed Fire Emblem for Sigurd, it was like they just took Samson's and just respliced it. So Samson, he's the axe hero. If you haven't trained any axe units, he's a perfectly viable choice. He's very high level 10 promoted, so he's very good base stats. Even on hard 5, he can work.
There is no correlation between level and base stats, but okay.
Well, you know, I'm just saying. 16 base speed is really good. I think Samson might actually be one of the fastest units in the game at base. I'm gonna have to check this, but I think he's up there. Yeah, and he has B rank in axes, which is really good. Can use the pole axe, can use the silver axe, and gives him some extra damage. So I think Samson's one of the better pre-promotes in the game. So I like him a lot. But he's not really that spectacular, and we're probably not going to use him because we're struggling finding unit slots, and he's not a flyer, and we kind of just want... If it's not a flyer or Gordin, we won't field it for the most part. So, but he's alright. His growth rates are pretty shit, as you might expect him to, but I rate him 2 out of 5 stars. Kind of like Astrom. He's just a decent all-around hero, but nothing super impressive.
3, right?
I gave him 3 out of 5, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's decent. Samson is okay for pre-promoted Shadow Dragon. Like, he has the low HP that almost everyone has. Speed is the second highest in the game, beaten only by Goto. And I think for hard 5 that mostly means not getting doubled by the faster enemies. I don't know how many of them are alive. But like, if you check the Paladins real quick, you can see if he like doubles or doesn't get doubled.
He doubles the Cavaliers. He does not get doubled by the Horsemen. He doubles the Armor Knight. No, the Generals. He does not double the Paladin. He doubles the boss, and he does not double the Dracos, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it's about as good as you can expect from a unit at base, really. What I like about him is that he has a B X rank at base and also a D sword rank, so he's pretty flexible on what effective weapons he can use. And I think I say this in almost every character rating. I just bring up their weapon ranks because it's so important in this game.
Yeah.
And the B in axis also gives him, I believe, plus 10 hits, so that's always nice. And he can use like forged pole axes, which is really nice against Paladins in this chapter and the next one. Yeah. So 3 out of 5 is good.
Right. And of course, if we were to visit this village, we would instead get the Paladin Aaron. Aaron is, I'd say he's like the male version of Media. He's just like a pre-promoted Paladin that joins way too late to be particularly useful. Kind of similar to Media, he also has upped growth rates compared to most other pre-promotes in the game. Like, his growth rates are around like 30 to 40 to 50% in most areas. But they're not high enough to actually warrant using him. He does come with A rank in lances though, which is pretty good. Gives him some extra bonus with the silver lance if you happen to want to use him. But there's just so many other good paladins that you could use at this point. I don't really see why you would need Aaron at all. He's better in the next story, to say the least, because then he's the Jagen. But I rate him the same as Media, 2 out of 5 stars. I don't really see any particular good use for him.
Yeah, Aaron's pretty terrible overall. The only redeeming factor is really the A-lances. Everything else is pretty bad. It's really telling that the game was made in like with permadeath in mind. I forgot how much we brought this up in the LP, but I guess he's like a replacement Jagen.
He's a replacement Jagen, yeah.
Yeah, basically, but his bases are slightly better. His speed is quite a bit better than Jagen's at base, so I guess that makes him sort of usable in a way. But 8 strength is really bad, so he can't really damage much, and he's already in one of the best classes. The best thing about him, I guess, is that he can go Draco Knight and then still use Silver Lances. But, not a fan. 2 out of 5.
Right. All right. Let's run away before the reinforcements show up.
Skip the convo?
He said he would.
Is this real? Is this Mangs?
He said he wouldn't trouble me with the details.
Okay.
When
All right.
people say something like that, I expect them to follow up on it. All right.
Okay.
Here's Cain. Cain's a bit of a weird unit. I like to call like it's called a freelancer, but they were called like a commando in the first game. I like to call him like the better version of the dancer unit. I think freelancer was.
I disagree.
I think freelancer was the unit they came up with because they wanted a dancer. But maybe they didn't know how to utilize it or anything, so they were like, okay, let's just make it copy a unit instead. Anyway, we're not going to talk about history. We'll save that for another history video. History of the freelancer class. Yeah, right. That's the next video I'll make. Cain himself is a unit that is a pretty interesting unit. He can copy one of your other units perfectly. There are some restrictions to this. He cannot copy Manakits. But aside from that, he can copy every other unit in your game, even ballisticians, I do believe. He copies their stats, but his hit points stays the same. So if he copies Marth, for example, his hit points will stay on 18, but he'll be on 18 out of 24. So in a sense, the only stat that really benefits him is his hit point stat and his other defensive stats if you would ever see, like, let him enter combat and transform, which I'm not sure why you would. He can actually use the sword in the older school games. Here he just comes with an iron sword for some reason. I guess it's like a homage, but they decided to just not let freelancers be able to fight, because in the past you used to actually need to fight with him untransformed to get experience. Now he just gets experience whenever he transforms. In Fire Emblem 3 you didn't get experience while transformed. You had to fight with him.
Oh, to get experience.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now he gets experience just like any other unit. So when you copy a unit, you copy their stats. You can just show it right here. So it's called imitate. He just copies Marth and he gets all of his stats except for hit points, which he needs to be healed up. And while he's transformed, he mimics everything about their class. He can even use class-specific weapons, such as the Rapier, with the exception of the Falchion. He cannot use the Falchion, and nor can he use Tiki with her Divine Stone. So 2 really good uses that could have made him really good, prevents him from being that unit that is super good. But, I mean, Cain is probably one of those units that most newer players just look at and go like, well, that's shit, I don't want to use this. But he actually does have some really nice uses. I know that in you and Dondon's Shadow Dragon 0% growth run, you used Cain a lot to like replicate Pala, which was like the strongest unit in your army.
Yeah.
And that basically just allowed you to get another really good Draco Knight and trading around the Rider's Bane. So for skilled players, and if you're doing like LTCs and 0% growth runs, Cain is really good. But for most average players, he's not that spectacular, so I give him like 3 out of 5 stars. He's alright. He's not really going to be used much in this LP, but if you need him to, there are some funny things you can pull off with him. Don't look the other way just because he seems like he seems like a discount dancer, but he is much more than that. Alright.
Okay, it's funny to hear you say that, because I think it's the exact opposite. I think he's better for casual players than he is for LTC players, because if you're playing fast, then you're probably warp skipping most maps and taking about 1 turn, and that's the 1 turn that Cain needs to transform. He needs to take a turn to turn into another unit before he's useful at all. And if you're just 1-turning an app, then he's just a worthless dude that's not doing anything. So for like LTCers, he's pretty much worthless. But for Dondon, it's kind of different because, for example, you have to recruit Est, so you have to survive in a map for a very long time. And because of that, Cain was actually useful in copying another strong unit. But for like the 1-turn maps, Cain is not very useful. But if you're playing a little bit slowly, even if it's just a little bit, Cain exists on turn 2. The map exists in turn 2. And you can copy one of your warpers to get like a village or something, or get the Ohm Staff, or God knows what. He can be an extra warper, he can be an extra flyer if you want him to. We can copy your strongest unit. Like people often say that your dancer in the GBA games is like a copy of your best unit. In a way, a dancer I think is a lot better because it also allows for extra movements on very strong units. It gets extra player face attacks in.
I'd say it's an extension if I were to use any description.
Yeah, but it's also like dancers can be a different unit every turn, whereas Cain stays transformed for I think like 3 or 4 turns and then untransforms afterwards, so he has to transform again, whereas a dancer is useful every single turn and can do something different every single time. And they can also assist like rescue drops and all that stuff, which Cain obviously cannot do. But Cain is literally just copy another really good unit, and I think the drawback of not copying their current HP, he copies max HP like you said, but not current HP. I think that's fine, you can just heal him if you really want to, so it's not that bad for casual players. But you gotta find the right unit to copy, and then he's basically a copy of your best unit. I think that's pretty good. So I wouldn't rate Zane perfectly, I think, for most casual players, because he does come pretty late. But when he joins, he's pretty good for pretty much anyone who isn't warp skipping the whole game. So I think he's really good. I like Zane a lot. People might think it's like a waste to give Zane EXP, but I always say like XP is not the end game of Fire Emblem, right? I have no issues using units that are like level capped or anything if it will make the map easier. And in a similar way, I don't have an issue with using Zane if it makes the map easier. So if I have to kill an enemy with Zane, I'm gonna do it.
Right. What star rating did you give him?
4 stars.
4 stars. Nice.
Yeah,
Right.
I like him.
All right.
I like Zane a lot. It's a very creative concept as well. I like him.
Yeah. Anyway, so if we had gone to the chapter 17X, we would have gotten Etzel, and he is a pre-promoted sorcerer. Etzel. Sorcerer. So what can we say about Etzel? I mean, his bases are okay. I mean, you could probably bring him along. He's sort of like a secondary Wendell with slightly better bases. Although, I think one of Etzel's worst weaknesses is the fact that he only has D and staves. But that still allows him to use men, though, and you can get him up to C relatively easy. So, if you want another warper, I guess you could field Etzel and just mend a little bit with him, and he'll be able to get to C rank somewhat soon. His stats are nothing special. They're alright. Again, I'd say they're like on par with, you know, Wendell at this point. Maybe a little bit higher. He does have 14 skill. Not that skill matters all that much for magic users. His growth rates are decent as well, but I just give him a 3 out of 5 stars. He's just like a pre-promoted staff user. Not fantastic, but not super bad either.
Yeah, I really wish this guy could warp, because that would be pretty amazing.
Yeah.
His magic is notably higher than Boa's and Wendell's, and he can use Excalibur, so he's actually pretty good at one-hit killing Wyvern Knights and everything if you want him to. I think he's actually the most powerful magic user you have, unless you plan on giving Spirit Dust to someone. In fact, he has the same magic base as Goto, to give you an idea. That's
really? 11?
Yeah.
Goto only has 11 magic?
Yeah.
Wow.
He has B tomes to Goto's A though, so Goto still does more damage. Wow,
more damage.
more blamage.
More blamage?
More blamage.
Alright.
9 speed is actually kind of low. I think there's some enemies that double him, so that is a problem. But his base durability isn't too bad. He actually has a pretty high HP base of 30. For some reason, everyone in this game is a really low HP base, but Etzel's kind of fine at 30 and then 7 defense. So he can take... If he doesn't get doubled, he can probably survive around combat and be okay. But I really wish he had a C in stats. I think if he had a C, I would probably still rate him 3 stars though, because like you already have so many corpus anyway. So yeah. I'm fine with 3 stars.
Yeah, alright. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I don't... No, this is Radd base, dude. He's really good. I downloaded the fanfiction version of Shadow Dragon.
Where's his summon then? Put the Firestone on him.
And yeah, also we need to talk about Ests. She joined in this chapter.
No, she didn't.
She did now. All right, let's talk about Est. So Est.
No, she didn't. She fucking didn't.
Yes, she did.
What are you talking about?
Yes, she did. So Est. She's the last Pegasus Knight to join you. She is an Est archetype. Hey, for once I'm actually correct.
Finally you're correct.
As you might expect, she has pretty good growth rates. Not as high as you might think, though. Like they were actually much higher in the first games. Here in Shadow Dragon, her growths are actually somewhat more moderate, in like the 50% tiles. She is my Est is level 8, but she joins at base at level 3 with really shitty bases. But she's actually really easy to train. She comes with the Rider's Bane, and the map that she joins in is full of cavalry. So you can carefully feed her kills, which is what I did off screen. So I got her up to 8 level pretty easily, at which point she starts to catch up with Paula and Katria, stat-wise. So now she's like just slightly worse than them. Actually, she's a lot worse than them, but she can do the triangle attack, which is kind of nice. You can take off some strong enemies with that move. And I think a lot of people are going to get surprised by this, but I'm actually going to rate S 3 out of 5 stars. Because, I mean, she's a flying unit. She comes with a Rider's Bane. She's very easy to train. I mean, she's kind of like got the same thing going as Farina did in Fire Emblem 7, in that the chapter she comes in is so easy to feed her kills. So you can easily train her up to like level 10, 11, 12 in the chapter she joins, just using her Rider's Bane against the cavalry. And you can promote her if you want to for a decent Draco Knight. I mean, yeah, sure, Pal and Katria are much better, but I think it's kind of like I don't think it's feasible to rate Ests any lower than 3 stars because she's a flying unit and Draco Knights are insanely good. And yeah, sure, if you're playing like LTC or 0% growth, she's not going to be worth much. But for a casual player like me in this run, I think Est is a serviceable unit. She's not fantastic, but she's not as horrible as she would have been in another kind of playthrough. So I actually rate her 3 out of 5 stars for the kind of playthrough that we're doing. If we were doing LTC, then she would be a 1 star.
Okay, so pet peeve. Do you actually give her credit for bringing a Rider's Bane? Or do you give her just credit for being able to use one? Because there's a difference.
For being able to use one at base, and for the chapter her joining in is full of enemies that she can kill. Kind of similar to Farina being able to kill all the monks in the chapter that she can join in. And for that reason alone, it's very easy to train her right off the bat if you want to use her. Sure, low availability and low base stats prevent her from being anything higher than a 3-star unit, but I just didn't think it was fair to rate her 2 stars because you can actually train her rather easily, and then you got 3 really good Pegasus Knights in Palakatran and Est who all support each other, can do the triangle attack to bring down strong pre-promotes, and I just think that she is probably 3 stars for the playstyle that I'm utilizing, but you know, I'm prove me wrong if you want to.
Interesting. See, the thing I like the most about Est is actually a very niche thing where she can use a triangle attack with Pala and Catcher, or rather she enables them to use the triangle attacks like Bosku or something.
Yeah.
I thought that would be like the main clutch of Est, but you know, thinking about it, she isn't as bad as a lot of people say, I guess. I was going to rate her 2 stars, which I think I'm still sticking with because the point is she is a flying unit in a way, but in the same way, almost everyone in that class set can be a flying unit if you want to. Someone like Hardin or Abel can be a flying unit. So you can have as many Draco Knights as you have flying slots.
Can I interrupt you a little bit there?
Yeah,
it is true.
sure.
It is true that you can reclass, but if you reclass anyone to a Pegasus Knight, they won't have C rank in Lances and won't be able to use the Draco or the Night Killer to get a bunch of kills.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm using people like Hardin or Abel as my argument, because they do have the Lance rank in order to use the Rider's Bane, so even that isn't all that special.
And they are 4-star units.
Yeah, they are, but the point is, if you were not to use Est as a Pegasus Knight, but you put her on the bench and reclass her into like an Archer or something to not take up space, you could still have a flying unit in her place, so you don't need Est to have the flying utility. You can just reclass Hardin or Abel to a Draco Knight. Like, remember how you had to reclass Jagen last chapter into a Paladin because you didn't have enough Draco Knight slots?
That is true, but also keep in mind that, yeah, it's true that you can do the same thing with Abel and Hardin, but I think that the added benefit of support and triangle attack actually pulls her up from a 2-star to a 3-star. It's a weak 3-star, I agree. But don't you think that it's worth more than 2? I mean, 2 stars, I mean, what other units did we rate 2 stars? Like, I think, like, I don't know, Kashim and stuff like that? I mean, do you really think she's as bad as him?
I mean, I think Kashim at this point is like much better at the than Est at combat, just because he's been around for all games. So if you straight up compare their combat, he would win out pretty big time, especially if he's promoted. But it does take and it takes so much effort to train her up too. I mean, I know it's easy, but you still gotta slow down. And even though it's not an LTC playthrough, I think that kind of tedium, there needs to be some kind of penalty for tedium, because otherwise, you know, generals are the best class in the game because they never die or something. You could take it so slowly. So there has to be some kind of penalty for slowing yourself down. So that's why I think it's fair to rate Est a little lower, because you did have to slow down in order to train Est all these paladins.
I had to do something while I was training Radd.
But anyway, if you average her rating, you get like a 2.5 star, which is probably the fairest she's going to get, and much better than Est has ever been rated. So I think it's a victory for her either way.
Yep. All right, and if you're curious, so before we kill this gorgeous girl, let's talk a little bit about Tiki, shall we? So obviously we fucked up.
She's a strong boss.
Yeah, so since we forgot to recruit Bantu, we have to kill Tiki, but that's actually fine, because that means we get another unit down the route, and actually we actually get to see a Guidance chapter because of my mistakes, so I guess you guys can be happy about that. Anyway, Tiki, she's a pretty good unit. In this game, she's pretty essential, because she's one of the few characters that can actually do damage to the final boss. Marth is kind of trash against Matthis on hard 5, because he just dies. Even with the function.
Not that Tiki survives, but she does more damage. She
does more damage because the Divine Stone has 12 might, which is pretty crazy. so it gets tripled. So I think she at base she deals like 45 damage to Matthis or something. It's pretty stupid.
Yeah.
The Divine Stone also gives plus 12 strength, plus 12 skill, plus 15 defense, plus 20 res. So this is how her stats actually look. She has really good growth rates, as you might expect, but it actually doesn't matter that much because at base she can pretty much do everything she wants to do anyway. Although if you level her up, she can actually take a couple of... She can take like a hit from a Mana Kid and survive, but aside from that, it doesn't really matter because you usually just use Tiki to move her into range and kill a Mana Kid in a turn. So I rate Tiki 4 out of 5 stars because she is pretty essential to killing the last boss. And I think the game developers even knew this because they added a guidance chapter if you lost her, where you basically get a clone of her. So I think they just knew that you gotta use Tiki on hard 5 to kill Matthis. So yeah, that's what I rate her.
I'm impressed by your ability to actually use her base stats as a good argument, and appreciating those instead of her growth rates, which are like a pitfall almost, because they're so good. They're like so worthless too.
I'm not that bad at Fire Emblem.
Okay. No comment. 4 stars, pretty good. I haven't really trained Tiki ever, but I know she does a lot of damage to the final boss. She does die, but then again, you get the Om stuff, so you can revive her and then attack again. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
4 stars, pretty good. Pretty accurate, too.
Yeah, Divine Stun has 100 hit, so that's pretty good. And there's no avoid in this game, so...
there is on Matthis, actually. She's pretty inaccurate on Matthis, but it's fine.
Yeah, you can just...
You warp skip that chapter anyway, right?
Maybe.
Right.
I haven't decided yet.
I haven't decided how many deaths are gonna fall.
So yeah.
Bye, Tiki.
Bye, Tiki. Radd Quaetz was stronger than he looked.
Wait, why are you not using the Fusto, or whatever it's called? Oh, stop, please come no closer. She's scared of Radd. Who would it be?
The young girl was looking as Radd was...
I thought Radd liked animals.
Radd, why did you leave me? Poor Radd.
Ben.
Aww. Right. Alright, so here's Lawrence, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh yeah,
Really good
this is
unit.
how good he is. He cannot kill a single priest.
Yeah,
He
alright.
just stabbed his own friend.
I completely forgot to prepare for this because I'm high on painkillers, so I don't remember Lawrence's growth rates, but I'm sure they don't matter anyway.
I'm gonna look him up so you have him right there.
So Lawrence, late game general, pretty bad. There's really no point in using him. I'm gonna give him 1 stars because I don't really know what you use him for. I mean, I guess like weapon ranks are decent. Like, what do you want a level 5 general with 17 base defense for at this point? Like, even on normal mode, I don't really think there's any use for him. On hard 5, he just dies to everything at this point, I think. So, like, I don't really know if there's any use for him. You educate me.
He has a 70% skill growth.
Oh, wow.
So I guess there's that. And 50% strength growth. So if you think that growth matter, then definitely use Lorenz. I'm gonna check his default bases real quick because they're probably really hilarious because they look like general class bases to me. Let me see, Lorenz, where are you? Bottom of the thing, bottom of your tier list. Yeah, okay, he doesn't have 0 bases and everything, but they're still pretty bad. I guess A lances is like okay, but like once again, the problem with this class set is you cannot reclass to anything else that can use lances. So it's really general or bust, and general is a shitty class. Especially this late. I mean, Sedgar did pretty well as one, but Lorenz really not that good. I guess B bows at this point in the game is actually pretty good for the next chapter, where you have to like shoot a lot of wyverns out of the sky. You can use like I don't know any kind of forged bow you have, or killer bow or whatever, and he can reclass to hunter, I think, or to horseman. So I don't know. You should probably field the next chapter for fun.
Yeah, sure. Let's do that.
That's pretty fun. I never considered that, but hunter Lorenz.
No, horseman Lawrence, Steven.
Yeah, horseman. Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
I keep saying hunter.
You can use the Roger.
Okay. Yeah. Lawrence.
Lawrence.
Forge a new one.
Alright, 5 stars.
Yeah. Or you can call it R or whatever you want.
Alright. Alright, we'll leave this.
Wow.
Anyway, so you get a new
This game really doesn't want you to sell warp.
No, it doesn't. So you get a new character in this map. You get Marth's sister, Elise. She's an Est archetype, so that means she's good, right?
Cringe.
So, Elise. At least they had the decency to make her level 10 in Shadow Dragon, so you can instantly promote her, which is nice. So what can we say about this woman? She's a staff user. She's got A rank in staves. She's a level 10 unpromoted priest. Her growth rates are good, but that doesn't really matter. But you can promote her right off the bat, so that's kind of nice if you need another staff user. You might think that
You can also not promote her if you want another staff user. It really doesn't matter.
Yeah, but there's no like if we have 2 master seals, so why not promote her, right?
Yeah.
I think Elise is like a nice utility unit. It's just to ensure that you got someone to use the stuff with, which you can use to resurrect one party member. A lot of people probably already know this, and I think we already talked about it in a few episodes ago, but Elise is actually not the only one who can use the staff. Maria can use it, Minerva can use it if you reclass her, Caeda can use it if you reclass her, and I think even Lena can use it. I'm not sure if Lena's class.
I think it's princess only or something, and Lena might be a princess of some kind, I think you might be right.
I think it's hinted that she is a princess of Macedon, or related to Maria in some way. They do have similar hair colors after all, that's how you know someone's related in Fire Emblem.
Yeah, exactly.
So there are actually quite a few people capable of using the staff, but, you know, for everything else, there's Elise. So, you know, I think she's a perfectly serviceable unit. I rank her 3 stars. It's not like you need her to finish the game, but if you want to do the classic warp, resurrect warp trick on Matthis, she's pretty essential if you don't have any other staff users trained. So, yeah, she's alright.
Yeah, I like Alice. I think it's funny that by her stats you would think she's like, I don't know, Sarah or something. Like her stats are probably worse than Sarah's actually, other than the Cain stats. So it's like, does she join level in chapter 1 or in chapter 24? And the funny thing is, it doesn't really make a difference. Even the 2 magic, it's like so bad. Like even if she joined in chapter 1, that would be bad. But this is chapter 24, right? Yeah. Yeah. So it's like super awful. The only thing it really matters for is like how much she heals with Fortify, and for everything else, it's irrelevant because you know warp range is infinite, Fortify range is infinite. It's really just how much HP do you heal with some kind of staff.
Yep.
But yeah, there's like no real reason to promote her, but there's also no reason not to do it. And she's pretty fine. I think 3 stars is good.
Yeah. So yeah, without further ado, let's do it.
I'll fight him at some point because no one won.
So let's talk about Nagi. Let me just bring up my little thing right here.
Tiki out of 10.
Oh shit, the TV is
wow, what a sick graphic that I've never seen before because I never watched these videos.
So
the TV was there.
I know, right? So this is Nagi. These are her base stats with the Divine Stone included, because why would you give her something else? It looks like you're gonna give her a Firestone at this point, right? So Nagi is basically Tiki. She actually has Tiki's growth rates, which is kind of interesting. But I think she's basically like Tiki if you leveled her to level 15. That's pretty much it. She's a Tiki clone. There's really nothing else to say about her. She's here to...
Fire Emblem Warriors?
She's basically here just to ensure that you have a way of killing Matthis. The problem is, at base on hard 5, Nagi gets 1-rounded. She does like 40 damage to him, which is a lot, but she dies. So if you don't have the Ound Staff, she can't kill him by herself. So since Nagi is a Tiki clone, I rate her 4. Actually, I rate her 4 stars, apparently, according to this. I thought I was going to say 3. So, 4 stars. What do you have to say about Nagi, Mecha?
Well, she has 90% luck growth, which is the best stat, so 5 stars.
I prepared for this!
I mean, what else is there to say? I don't know how she performs against fucking brave weapons. Like, I haven't fought an enemy in this chapter for, like, years and years and years, so I have no idea how she performs. I do want to bring up the fact that Tiki is probably, or Nagi is supposed to be like Tiki from the future, which is why it would make sense if she was like a leveled up version of Tiki. But yeah, she's like meant to do like damage to Matthis. I think she does like 75% of his health or something, which is like a really good amount. I don't think anyone else can do that much.
Yeah, but she still can't one-shot.
There's not a whole lot she can do. I actually think Tiki is better than her, just because Tiki has like utility in chapters before this, but whatever. So, what did I give Tiki? Do you remember?
I think you gave her 4 stars.
4 stars is fine. Yes.
But
professional streaming.
But we're not done here, ladies and gentlemen. If we hadn't gotten Nagi, we would have gotten Godo instead. He trains if you don't get Nagi, but he's basically like, I kind of consider him Elise, but without the Ound stuff. But he does come with the only obtainable Swarm Tome in the game, in Shadow Dragon, which is kind of interesting, so you can kind of use that to kill Ballista. So, I'm not sure if that should be counted as like a thing that makes Godo better. I would say so.
I'm sorry, but the chat is chanting, we traveled to Brooks without wikis or books, all to prove to Matthis that Radd's stronger than he looks.
Thank you Twitch chat, lovely. So, yeah, anyway, because the Twitch chat is more interested in copy pasting, I'm just gonna give it my rating. I rate him, I don't know why there's a 2-star mecha rating right there, but I gave him 3
2 stars drop from your rating into mine?
I don't know, I think I just fucked up. Anyway, so, yeah, I rate him 3 stars, same as Elise. He's a late game staff user.
Yeah, pretty good. I mean, what I like about him is that he can warp like Marth. He's like guaranteed to be next to Marth because of his starting position, which lets him warp. But in this case, you know, we can't warp, so fuck him. And he also isn't here, so fuck him.
How many stars?
2 stars is fine. Just keep it the way it is.
All right, cool. Because I actually prepared. 5.
No, stop it.
All right.
Pitfall.
All right. I just gotta reduce.